High in the Andes Mountains of Peru, where the air is thin and the clouds kiss ancient stone, stands one of the most breathtaking mysteries our world has ever known: Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Incas. A marvel of engineering that defies everything we think we understand about 15th century construction capabilities. Picture this: massive granite blocks, some weighing over 50 tons, fitted together with such precision that you can't slip a knife blade between them. No mortar, no modern machinery, no wheels. Yet somehow, the Inca managed to transport these colossal stones up treacherous mountain paths and assemble them into structures that have withstood earthquakes, torrential rains, and 5 centuries of time itself. But here's where it gets interesting. What if I told you that scattered throughout this ancient citadel are architectural anomalies that challenge our most basic assumptions about who built Machu Picchu and how they did it? What if the evidence suggests that the Inca weren't working alone? Welcome to a journey that will forever change how you see one of the world's most iconic archaeological sites. I'm about to reveal discoveries that mainstream archaeology prefers to keep quiet. Anomalies in the stonework that suggest technologies far beyond what any civilization should have possessed in the 1400s. Astronomical alignments so precise they seem to require knowledge of celestial mechanics that wouldn't be formally discovered for centuries. Over the past 3 years, I've pored through hundreds of archaeological reports, analysed thousands of photographs, and consulted with researchers who've spent decades studying every inch of this mysterious citadel. What I've uncovered will challenge everything you thought you knew about human history. In this deep dive investigation, we're going to explore 3 categories of evidence that point to something extraordinary happening at Machu Picchu. First, we'll examine the impossible engineering feats that modern construction crews would struggle to replicate even today. Then, we'll decode the astronomical alignments that suggest the builders possessed advanced mathematical knowledge. Finally, we'll investigate the most controversial evidence of all: the physical anomalies in the stonework itself that seem to defy the laws of physics. But before we dive into the mystery, let me give you some context that will make everything we discover even more mind-blowing. The conventional story goes like this. Around 1450 CE, the Inca Emperor Pachacuti ordered the construction of a royal estate high in the Sacred Valley. Using nothing but bronze tools, ropes, and human labour, thousands of workers quarried massive granite blocks from nearby mountainsides, somehow transported them up nearly vertical cliff faces, and assembled them into the architectural masterpiece we see today. The entire project was supposedly completed in less than a century, then mysteriously abandoned when the Spanish conquistadors arrived. For over 400 years, the jungle slowly reclaimed the city until American historian Hiram Bingham brought it back to the world's attention in 1911. That's the official story, but as we'll see, the evidence tells a very different tale. Now, I want to be clear about something from the start. I'm not here to diminish the incredible achievements of the Inca civilization. They were master builders, engineers, and astronomers whose accomplishments deserve our deepest respect. But what if their most impressive achievement wasn't building Machu Picchu from scratch, but rather restoring and adapting structures that were already impossibly ancient when they found them? This isn't just wild speculation. Archaeological evidence suggests that many of the most technically sophisticated structures at Machu Picchu show signs of being much older than the conventional timeline allows. We're talking about construction techniques that appear nowhere else in the known Inca repertoire, using methods that seem to have been lost to time. The rabbit hole goes even deeper when you consider the site's astronomical alignments. The Intihuatana stone, often called the hitching post of the sun, is positioned with such precision that it can track celestial events with an accuracy that rivals modern observatories. The Temple of the Three Windows frames specific constellations at key moments in the agricultural calendar. The overall layout of the city appears to mirror star patterns in ways that suggest the builders had access to advanced astronomical knowledge. But perhaps most intriguing of all are the physical anomalies in the stonework itself. Blocks that show evidence of having been shaped using techniques we can't identify. Joint patterns that seem to follow mathematical principles that weren't formally discovered until centuries later. And most mysteriously, sections of wall that appear to have been fused together at a molecular level, creating bonds stronger than anything achievable with traditional masonry. These aren't just curiosities to be dismissed. They're pieces of evidence that, when assembled, paint a picture of Machu Picchu that's far more complex and mysterious than the tourist brochures would have you believe. Now, before we go any further, I need to address the elephant in the room. The moment you start questioning conventional archaeological timelines, certain people will try to dismiss you as a conspiracy theorist or pseudoscientist. They'll say you're disrespecting indigenous cultures by suggesting they couldn't have built these structures themselves. But here's the thing. Asking questions isn't disrespectful. Ignoring evidence because it doesn't fit our preconceived notions is what's truly disrespectful to the pursuit of truth. The builders of Machu Picchu, whoever they were and whenever they lived, created something that transcends our current understanding of human capability. That deserves investigation, not dismissal. And let's be honest about the limitations of conventional archaeology. The field operates under certain assumptions that haven't been seriously questioned in decades. The idea that human civilization follows a linear progression from primitive to advanced. The notion that certain technologies couldn't have existed before specific dates. The assumption that isolated civilizations couldn't have possessed knowledge that seems advanced by our standards. But what if these assumptions are wrong? What if human history is far more complex and mysterious than we've been taught? What if Machu Picchu is evidence of capabilities that challenge our most fundamental beliefs about the past? The evidence we're about to explore suggests exactly that. We're going to examine construction techniques that push the boundaries of what should have been possible with the tools available to the Inca. We'll decode astronomical alignments that demonstrate knowledge of celestial mechanics that officially wasn't discovered until the age of telescopes. And we'll investigate physical anomalies in the stonework that suggest the builders had access to technologies we're only beginning to understand today. This isn't about ancient aliens swooping down from the stars to build monuments for primitive humans. It's about recognizing that human ingenuity and capability might extend much further back in time than we've previously imagined. It's about considering the possibility that advanced knowledge and sophisticated technologies might have existed in forms we haven't recognized or understood. The story of Machu Picchu isn't just about one mysterious archaeological site. It's a window into a larger question that could reshape our understanding of human history itself. How advanced were our ancestors, really? What knowledge have we lost to time? And what might we rediscover if we're brave enough to question the conventional wisdom? As we embark on this investigation, I want you to approach the evidence with an open mind but a critical eye. Don't accept anything I say just because it sounds intriguing or confirms what you might want to believe. Examine the evidence for yourself, ask hard questions, demand rigorous analysis, but also don't dismiss possibilities just because they challenge what you've been taught. Science advances by questioning established assumptions, not by defending them blindly. The greatest discoveries in human history have come from people who are willing to look at familiar evidence in new ways. The mystery of Machu Picchu is calling us to do exactly that. To look beyond the sanitized version of history we've been fed and examine what the evidence actually tells us. To consider possibilities that might seem impossible at first glance, but become increasingly plausible as the evidence mounts. Are you ready to question everything you thought you knew about one of the world's most famous archaeological sites? Are you prepared to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it takes us into territory that mainstream academia prefers to avoid? Because what we're about to discover will challenge not just your understanding of Machu Picchu, but your entire perspective on human capability and the true timeline of technological advancement on our planet. The ancient stones of Machu Picchu have been keeping secrets for centuries, but today we're going to unlock some of those secrets and reveal evidence that suggests this remarkable site might be far more mysterious than anyone has dared to imagine. So take a deep breath of that thin mountain air and prepare yourself for a journey that will forever change how you see the past. The truth about Machu Picchu is about to be revealed, and it's more extraordinary than you could ever imagine. Let's begin with the engineering impossibilities that should make every mainstream archaeologist lose sleep at night. Because when you really examine the construction techniques used at Machu Picchu, you're not just looking at impressive ancient building methods, you're staring at evidence of capabilities that shouldn't have existed in the 15th century. Walk with me to the Temple of the Sun, where we encounter our first jaw-dropping anomaly. This curved wall follows a perfect elliptical arc, constructed from individual granite blocks that have been shaped to fit together like pieces of a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. Each block is unique, yet they interlock with mathematical precision that would challenge modern architects using computer-aided design. But here's what will blow your mind. The Inca didn't have iron tools. They worked with bronze implements, wooden levers, and stone hammers. Try to imagine shaping hard granite into complex curves using nothing but bronze chisels. It's like trying to carve a sculpture with a butter knife. The physics simply don't add up. Dr. Jean-Pierre Protzen, a structural engineer who spent years studying Inca stonework, conducted experiments trying to replicate their techniques. Using traditional tools and methods described in historical accounts, his team managed to shape simple, flat surfaces on granite blocks. But the complex curves, the perfect joints, the intricate angles found throughout Machu Picchu, they couldn't even come close. This isn't a matter of skill or patience. We're talking about fundamental limitations of the tools themselves. Bronze is simply too soft to efficiently shape hard granite, especially into the complex geometries we see at Machu Picchu. Yet somehow, the builders achieved levels of precision that modern stonemasons struggle to match with power tools and diamond-tipped blades. The plot thickens when we examine the famous 12-ankled stone in nearby Cusco, which many believe was created by the same builders. This single block has 12 precisely cut faces, each meeting its neighbours at perfect angles. The tolerances are so tight that the joints are virtually invisible. How do you achieve this level of precision without modern measuring instruments, without computer calculations, without the ability to make minute adjustments using power tools? The conventional explanation involves years of patient trial and error, with master craftsmen somehow intuiting the correct angles through experience and skill. But this explanation crumbles under scrutiny. The mathematical complexity of creating 12 interlocking faces on a single stone requires calculations that wouldn't be formalized until centuries later. We're not talking about rough approximations here. We're talking about precision that approaches perfection. But the engineering mysteries go far beyond individual stones. The entire structural system at Machu Picchu demonstrates an understanding of seismic engineering that wasn't officially developed until the 20th century. The walls are built with a slight inward lean that provides stability during earthquakes. The joints between stones are designed to absorb and dissipate seismic energy. The overall layout distributes weight in ways that prevent catastrophic collapse. This isn't accidental. It's evidence of sophisticated engineering knowledge that took modern science centuries to develop. The Inca supposedly learned these techniques through trial and error, adapting to the seismically active Andes through generations of building experience. But that explanation ignores a crucial fact. Earthquakes that could test these design principles occur perhaps once or twice per century. How could any civilization accumulate enough empirical data to develop such sophisticated seismic engineering through observation alone? The transportation logistics present another impossibility that archaeology prefers to gloss over. Some of the largest stones at Machu Picchu weigh over 50 tons. The quarry sites have been identified several miles away, across terrain that would challenge modern heavy lifting equipment. The path involves crossing rivers, navigating cliff faces, and ascending nearly vertical slopes where a single mistake would send a massive stone tumbling into the abyss below. Conventional archaeology suggests the Inca used wooden rollers, rope systems, and massive teams of workers to move these stones. But engineering analysis reveals this explanation is woefully inadequate. The friction coefficients alone would require forces that exceed what human labour could provide. The ropes available to the Inca couldn't handle the necessary tensions without snapping. The wooden rollers would be crushed under such immense weight. Modern attempts to replicate these transportation feats using traditional methods have failed spectacularly. In 2001, a team of archaeologists and engineers attempted to move a 10-ton stone using historically accurate techniques. After days of effort and multiple equipment failures, they managed to transport the stone less than 100 meters before abandoning the experiment. Yet somehow, the builders of Machu Picchu routinely moved stones 5 times heavier across miles of impossible terrain. The precision of the stone placement reveals another layer of impossibility. Many of the massive blocks at Machu Picchu are positioned with tolerances measured in millimeters. The famous earthquake-proof joints aren't just tight, they're engineered to specific specifications that distribute stress loads across the entire structure. This level of precision requires surveying and measuring capabilities that supposedly didn't exist in the pre-Columbian Americas. Consider the complexity of fitting together a 3-dimensional puzzle where each piece weighs tens of tons and must be positioned with millimeter accuracy. In modern construction, this would require cranes, laser measuring systems, and computer-controlled positioning equipment. Yet somehow, the builders of Machu Picchu achieved this precision using Bronze Age technology and human labour alone. The stonework also reveals evidence of techniques that we can't identify or replicate. Many blocks show signs of having been shaped using methods that leave no tool marks, no evidence of the grinding and chiselling that would be expected from traditional stoneworking techniques. The surfaces are smooth to a degree that suggests some form of advanced finishing process, yet there's no indication of what that process might have been. Some blocks exhibit what can only be described as vitrification, a glass-like quality to the stone surface that suggests exposure to extreme heat. But this vitrification appears only in specific areas and follows patterns that seem deliberately controlled. What kind of heat source could achieve such precise results? How could the builders control the application of such extreme temperatures with the precision we observe? The joint patterns themselves follow mathematical relationships that weren't formally discovered until much later in human history. The angles between surfaces conform to geometric principles that require advanced understanding of three-dimensional mathematics. The stress distribution patterns suggest knowledge of material science that wasn't developed until the Industrial Age. Perhaps most mysteriously, some sections of wall appear to have been fused together at a molecular level. The boundaries between individual stones are detectable only through careful analysis. To the naked eye, entire sections appear to be carved from single, massive blocks of granite. How do you fuse separate stones together so completely that they become essentially one piece? What technology could achieve such results? The acoustic properties of certain structures at Machu Picchu reveal another layer of sophistication. The Temple of the Condor, for example, demonstrates advanced understanding of sound propagation and resonance. Whispers spoken at specific locations can be heard clearly across the chamber, while sounds from other positions are absorbed and muted. This acoustic engineering requires knowledge of wave physics and architectural acoustics that wasn't formally understood until centuries later. The water management systems showcase hydraulic engineering that rivals modern capabilities. The site features an intricate network of channels, fountains, and drainage systems that function perfectly after more than 500 years. The gradients are calculated with precision that ensures optimal flow rates under varying conditions. The fountain systems demonstrate understanding of fluid dynamics and pressure differentials that require sophisticated mathematical knowledge. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some of these water channels are carved directly into the living rock with such precision that they appear to have been created using advanced machining techniques. The smooth, perfectly uniform surfaces show no evidence of traditional carving methods. The curves and angles are mathematically perfect in ways that hand carving simply cannot achieve. When you step back and examine all these engineering impossibilities together, a disturbing picture emerges. We're not looking at the achievements of a Bronze Age civilization working with primitive tools and limited knowledge. We're looking at evidence of capabilities that shouldn't have existed, techniques that can't be explained by conventional archaeology, and precision that challenges our understanding of technological development. The builders of Machu Picchu possessed knowledge and capabilities that seem impossibly advanced for their supposed time period. They solved engineering problems that modern science didn't formally address until centuries later. They achieved precision that rivals contemporary construction techniques. They demonstrated understanding of principles that weren't officially discovered until the scientific revolution. This isn't about diminishing the achievements of indigenous peoples. It's about recognizing that human capability might extend much further back in time than we've previously imagined. The builders of Machu Picchu, whoever they were and whenever they lived, accomplished something that transcends our current understanding of technological development. The question isn't whether these engineering feats are impressive. The question is how they were achieved and what that tells us about the true capabilities of ancient civilizations. Because if the conventional timeline is correct, then we're looking at impossible achievements accomplished through impossible means. And that's just the beginning of the mystery. The astronomical alignments we're about to explore will reveal evidence of mathematical and scientific knowledge that pushes the boundaries of believability even further. The ancient builders of Machu Picchu weren't just master engineers. They were also astronomers whose understanding of celestial mechanics seems to have exceeded what any civilization should have possessed in the pre-telescopic era. The astronomical alignments at Machu Picchu aren't just impressive coincidences. They're evidence of mathematical sophistication that officially didn't exist in the 15th century. When you understand what the builders achieved in terms of celestial observation and calculation, you start to realize we're dealing with knowledge that seems impossibly advanced for its time. Let's start with the most famous example, the Intihuatana stone. This carved granite pillar sits at the highest point of the urban sector, positioned with such precision that it functions as a perfect solar calendar. During the winter solstice, the stone casts no shadow at solar noon. During the equinoxes, it tracks the sun's movement with mathematical accuracy that rivals modern observatories. But here's what mainstream archaeology doesn't want you to think about too deeply. Creating this level of astronomical precision requires knowledge that goes far beyond simple observation. The builders had to understand the Earth's axial tilt, the mechanics of orbital motion, and the complex relationship between our planet's rotation and its journey around the Sun. These aren't concepts you stumble upon through casual skywatching. The positioning calculations alone would have required advanced trigonometry and spherical geometry. The builders needed to account for latitude, elevation, atmospheric refraction, and the Earth's slight wobble on its axis. These are mathematical concepts that weren't formally developed until the Renaissance, yet somehow the builders of Machu Picchu incorporated them into their stone calendar with perfect accuracy. Dr. Giulio Magli, an archaeoastronomer at the Polytechnic University of Milan, spent years analysing the site's astronomical alignments. His findings are remarkable and deeply troubling for conventional timelines. The Intihuatana stone doesn't just track basic solar movements, it's calibrated to account for the precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000-year cycle that causes gradual shifts in stellar positions over centuries. Think about what this means. The builders somehow knew that star positions change over time due to Earth's axial wobble. They understood that their astronomical alignments would gradually drift out of calibration unless they accounted for this incredibly slow celestial motion. This requires observational data spanning centuries, mathematical models of planetary mechanics, and computational abilities that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian America. The Temple of the Three Windows presents another astronomical impossibility. This structure is positioned and oriented to frame specific constellations at precise moments in the agricultural calendar. During certain times of year, the Southern Cross appears perfectly centered in the middle window, while other stellar formations align with the outer windows in a choreographed celestial display. But the alignments go deeper than simple constellation framing. The windows are positioned to track the heliacal rising of specific stars, the moment when stars first become visible before dawn after a period of being lost in the sun's glare. Ancient civilizations used heliacal risings to mark important dates in their calendars, but predicting these events requires detailed knowledge of stellar motions and the Earth's orbital mechanics. The mathematical complexity of calculating heliacal risings for multiple stars simultaneously is staggering. You need to account for the Earth's orbital velocity, atmospheric extinction, the observer's latitude and elevation, and the complex dance of stellar motions across the celestial sphere. The builders of Machu Picchu somehow possessed all this knowledge and used it to create architectural features that function as precision astronomical instruments. The overall layout of the city reveals even more sophisticated astronomical knowledge. When viewed from above, the urban sector mirrors the constellation of the Southern Cross, with major structures positioned to correspond to specific stars. This isn't a rough approximation. The proportions and angles match the stellar positions with remarkable accuracy. Creating this celestial mirror on Earth required detailed star maps, precise surveying techniques, and mathematical calculations that could translate three-dimensional celestial coordinates into two-dimensional terrestrial layouts. The builders had to account for the fact that stars appear at different positions depending on the time of night and season, then choose specific moments to serve as their reference points. The precision of these alignments suggests the builders possessed star catalogues that recorded the positions of hundreds of celestial objects with extraordinary accuracy. Creating such catalogues requires decades of systematic observation, sophisticated measuring instruments, and mathematical techniques for correcting observational errors. Where are the records of this astronomical project? Where are the instruments that made such precision possible? The Temple of the Sun showcases another layer of astronomical sophistication. This curved structure contains windows that are precisely positioned to frame the rising sun during the winter and summer solstices. But the alignment isn't just functional, it's also symbolic and mathematical. The angles of the windows correspond to specific geometric relationships that encode important astronomical constants. The window angles incorporate the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship that appears throughout nature and wasn't formally described until ancient Greek mathematicians developed it, centuries after Machu Picchu was supposedly built. The builders somehow knew this mathematical constant and used it to create architectural features that blend astronomical function with geometric harmony. The drainage channels throughout the site follow alignments that correspond to stellar positions at key moments in the agricultural calendar. Water flows along paths that mirror the apparent motion of important constellations, creating a hydraulic system that functions as both practical infrastructure and astronomical calendar. The engineering required to achieve this dual purpose is breathtaking in its complexity. Some of the astronomical alignments at Machu Picchu account for phenomena that occur on timescales far longer than human lifespans. The precession of the equinoxes, for example, causes stellar positions to shift gradually over centuries. The builders somehow incorporated these long-term changes into their architectural designs, creating alignments that would remain accurate across multiple generations. This suggests access to astronomical records spanning centuries, if not millennia. How could a civilization supposedly working with Bronze Age technology maintain such detailed observational records across such vast timescales? How could they predict future stellar positions with the accuracy we observe in the stone alignments? The lunar alignments present their own set of impossibilities. Several structures at Machu Picchu are positioned to track the complex cycles of lunar motion, including the 18.6-year cycle that governs the extreme positions of moonrise and moonset. Predicting these lunar extremes requires understanding the gravitational interactions between Earth, Moon, and Sun, plus the mathematical ability to calculate their long-term effects. The builders also incorporated alignments that track the synodic month, the period between successive new moons, and the sidereal month, the time it takes the moon to complete one orbit relative to the stars. These are different cycles with different periods, and tracking both simultaneously requires mathematical sophistication that rivals modern astronomy. Perhaps most remarkably, some alignments appear to track the motion of planets across the stellar background. Venus alignments are particularly prominent, with several structures oriented to frame the planet's maximum elongations, the points in its orbit when it appears farthest from the Sun in Earth's sky. Calculating these planetary positions requires mathematical models of orbital mechanics that weren't officially developed until Kepler and Newton. The builders somehow knew that planets follow elliptical orbits, that their apparent motions result from the combination of Earth's orbital motion and their own, and that these complex interactions could be predicted using mathematical relationships. They encoded this knowledge into stone architecture that continues to demonstrate their astronomical sophistication more than 500 years later. When you examine all these astronomical achievements together, you're forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The builders of Machu Picchu possessed mathematical and scientific knowledge that officially didn't exist in the 15th century. They understood celestial mechanics, spherical geometry, and observational astronomy at a level that rivals modern capabilities. This isn't a matter of indigenous peoples being naturally good at watching the sky. We're talking about sophisticated mathematical calculations, complex geometric relationships, and systematic observational programs that would challenge contemporary astronomers working with modern instruments and computer assistants. The conventional explanation suggests that ancient peoples had more time to observe the sky, and therefore developed better understanding of astronomical cycles through patient observation. But this explanation ignores the mathematical complexity of the calculations required. You can't derive the precession of the equinoxes or predict planetary positions through casual observation, no matter how much time you spend looking up. The astronomical alignments at Machu Picchu represent a level of scientific achievement that seems impossibly advanced for its supposed time period. They demonstrate knowledge that took European civilization centuries to rediscover, capabilities that require mathematical tools that supposedly didn't exist, and observational precision that challenges our understanding of pre-telescopic astronomy. But the astronomical mysteries are just the beginning. The physical anomalies in the stonework itself reveal evidence that pushes the boundaries of believability even further. We're about to examine stone surfaces that appear to have been shaped using techniques we can't identify, joint patterns that seem to defy the laws of physics, and construction methods that challenge everything we think we know about ancient building techniques. The stones themselves are trying to tell us something. They're revealing secrets about their creators that mainstream archaeology isn't ready to hear. But the evidence is there, carved into granite, waiting for anyone brave enough to look beyond conventional explanations and consider the impossible. Because what we're about to discover in the stonework of Machu Picchu will force you to question not just the capabilities of ancient civilizations, but the very nature of human technological development itself. The physical evidence is about to reveal secrets that could rewrite our understanding of history. The stones of Machu Picchu hold secrets that will make you question everything you thought you knew about ancient construction techniques. When you examine the physical evidence with an unbiased eye, you're not just looking at impressive craftsmanship. You're staring at anomalies that seem to violate the fundamental laws of how stone can be shaped and assembled. Let me take you to the most controversial section of the entire site: the foundation stones of the Temple of the Sun. These massive granite blocks exhibit surface characteristics that have puzzled researchers for decades. Under close examination, the stone faces appear to have been softened and moulded rather than carved. The edges flow together in ways that suggest the granite was somehow made pliable during construction. Dr. Christopher Dunn, a precision machinist who has spent years analysing ancient stonework, made a startling observation during his 2019 visit to Machu Picchu. Using high-resolution photography and surface analysis techniques, he documented what he calls impossible geometries in the foundation stones. The blocks don't just fit together perfectly, they appear to have been fused at a molecular level. Think about what this means. Granite is one of the hardest materials on Earth, formed under extreme pressure and temperature deep within the planet's crust. Under normal conditions, granite can only be shaped through grinding, chiseling, or cutting with harder materials. Yet sections of wall at Machu Picchu show no evidence of these traditional stoneworking techniques. The surface textures tell an incredible story. Instead of the rough, fractured surfaces you'd expect from Bronze Age stone tools, many blocks exhibit smooth, flowing contours that seem almost organic. The transitions between different faces of the same stone follow curves that would be impossible to achieve through manual carving, regardless of skill level or time investment. But here's where it gets truly mind-bending. Some stones show evidence of having been shaped while in a plastic state, as if the granite had somehow been rendered soft and malleable. The corners and edges exhibit characteristics typically seen in moulded materials, not carved stone. How do you soften granite? What technology could render solid rock temporarily malleable? The joint patterns reveal another layer of impossibility. Traditional masonry creates joints by shaping two separate stones to fit together. But at Machu Picchu, many joints appear to have been formed simultaneously, as if both stones were soft when they were pressed together. The boundaries between blocks sometimes show interpenetration, where material from one stone seems to have flowed into the other. Under microscopic analysis, these joint areas reveal crystal structures that don't match either of the adjoining stones. It's as if the contact zones underwent some kind of transformation during construction, creating new mineral formations that bond the blocks together more strongly than any mortar ever could. What process could alter granite's crystal structure so precisely? The famous cushion stones present another puzzle that defies conventional explanation. These blocks have edges that appear to bulge outward, as if the stone were under some kind of internal pressure when it solidified. The bulging isn't random. It follows specific patterns that suggest controlled application of whatever force created these deformations. Geologist Dr. Robert Schoch, who gained fame for his controversial redating of the Sphinx, examined these cushion stones during a 2018 expedition to Machu Picchu. His analysis revealed that the bulging patterns follow stress lines that would be created by uniform internal pressure, not external carving forces. This suggests the stones were shaped from within while they were still in a formative state. The precision of the stone cutting reaches levels that challenge our understanding of what's possible with any known technology. Some blocks feature internal corners with radii so small they approach the theoretical limits of what any cutting tool could achieve. These aren't rough approximations created by patient craftsmen, they're precision features that would challenge modern CNC machining equipment. The tool marks, or rather the complete absence of them, tell their own story. Conventional stone carving leaves characteristic patterns, parallel striations from chisels, circular marks from drilling, rough textures from grinding. Yet vast sections of Machu Picchu's stonework show no evidence of any traditional stoneworking techniques. The surfaces are smooth to a degree that suggests some form of advanced finishing process we can't identify. Some blocks exhibit what can only be described as scoop marks, curved depressions that look as if material was removed with a giant ice cream scoop. These aren't the result of weathering or erosion. They're clearly deliberate features created during construction. But what tool could create such smooth, uniform scoops in solid granite? How do you remove stone in perfectly curved sections without leaving any trace of the removal process? The internal structures of some stones reveal even more mysterious characteristics. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have detected voids and channels within solid blocks that appear to have been formed during construction, not carved afterward. These internal features follow complex three-dimensional patterns that would be impossible to create through any drilling or carving technique. Some of these internal voids appear to be perfectly spherical, as if bubbles were somehow trapped within the stone during formation. Others follow geometric patterns that suggest deliberate design rather than natural formation. How do you create internal structures within solid granite blocks? What technology could hollow out complex shapes inside stone without leaving any external evidence of the process? The surface temperatures of certain stones present another anomaly that researchers prefer not to discuss. Thermal imaging reveals that some blocks maintain temperatures slightly different from their surroundings, even during periods of stable weather. These temperature variations follow patterns that correspond to the internal structures detected by radar, suggesting some kind of ongoing process within the stones themselves. The acoustic properties of the stonework reveal characteristics that seem engineered rather than accidental. When struck with a hammer, different sections of the same wall produce distinctly different tones, despite being constructed from the same type of granite. Some blocks ring like bells, others produce deep, resonant tones, and still others seem to absorb sound entirely. This acoustic variation isn't random. The tonal patterns follow mathematical relationships that create harmonic sequences when multiple stones are struck in sequence. It's as if the entire wall system was designed to function as a massive musical instrument, with each block tuned to specific frequencies. What knowledge of acoustics and materials science would be required to achieve such precision? The electromagnetic properties of certain stones add another layer of mystery. Magnetometer readings reveal that some blocks exhibit magnetic fields that don't correspond to the natural magnetism of granite. These anomalous readings follow patterns that seem to correlate with the acoustic properties and internal structures, suggesting some kind of unified design principle that we don't understand. Some researchers have detected what they describe as energy signatures within certain stones, electromagnetic patterns that seem too organized to be natural. While mainstream science dismisses these claims as measurement errors or equipment malfunctions, the patterns are consistent and repeatable across multiple measurement sessions and different instruments. The weathering patterns on the stones tell a story that contradicts the conventional timeline. Granite weathers at predictable rates under specific environmental conditions. Based on the climate at Machu Picchu and the known weathering characteristics of granite, the exposed surfaces should show much more erosion after 500 years of exposure to the elements. Instead, many stone appear remarkably fresh, with sharp edges and fine details preserved as if they were carved yesterday. Other sections show weathering patterns that suggest much greater age, with surfaces worn smooth by millennia of exposure. How can stones in the same structure show such dramatically different weathering characteristics? The chemical composition of some stones reveals another impossibility. Spectroscopic analysis has detected trace elements that don't occur naturally in the local granite. These exotic elements appear to be concentrated in the joint areas and surface treatments, suggesting they were added during construction through some unknown process. Some of these trace elements are extremely rare, found naturally only in meteorites or created in laboratory conditions through high-energy processes. How did the builders of Machu Picchu obtain these materials? What technology allowed them to incorporate exotic elements into granite structures with such precision? The crystal structures within some stones show evidence of having been altered at the atomic level. X-ray crystallography reveals that the mineral lattices in certain areas have been reorganized in ways that don't occur naturally. The alterations follow specific patterns that suggest controlled modification, rather than random geological processes. These atomic-level modifications appear to be responsible for some of the unusual properties observed in the stonework: the enhanced bonding between blocks, the acoustic characteristics, the electromagnetic anomalies. But altering crystal structures at the atomic level requires technologies that we're only beginning to develop today. How could ancient builders achieve such precise atomic manipulation? The surface hardness of some stones varies dramatically across individual blocks. Hardness testing reveals that certain areas are significantly harder than standard granite, while others appear to have been softened. These hardness variations follow deliberate patterns that seem related to the structural requirements of each location within the wall system. Creating such precise hardness variations would require controlled application of extreme temperatures, pressures, or chemical treatments. The pattern suggests that the builders could selectively modify the physical properties of granite to meet specific engineering requirements. This level of materials control implies knowledge of chemistry and physics that shouldn't have existed in the 15th century. The microscopic analysis reveals perhaps the most startling evidence of all. When examined at high magnification, the grain boundaries within some stones show signs of having been melted and reformed. The crystalline structures display characteristics typically seen only in materials that have been subjected to extreme heat and then rapidly cooled. But this melting and reforming wasn't random. It follows specific patterns that suggest controlled application of intense heat to achieve desired structural properties. The affected areas correspond exactly to the locations where maximum strength was required for the overall structural integrity of the walls. How do you selectively melt sections of granite blocks while leaving other areas unaffected? What heat source could achieve such precision? How could ancient builders control temperatures high enough to melt granite while preventing thermal damage to surrounding areas? The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. The stonework at Machu Picchu exhibits characteristics that can't be explained by conventional construction techniques. We're looking at precision that exceeds modern capabilities, material properties that seem engineered rather than natural, and construction methods that appear to involve technologies we don't understand. This isn't about ancient aliens or lost civilizations from Atlantis. This is about physical evidence that challenges our fundamental assumptions about technological development and human capability. The stones themselves are telling us that something extraordinary happened at Machu Picchu, something that transcends our current understanding of ancient construction techniques. The builders possess knowledge and capabilities that seem impossibly advanced for their supposed time period. They could manipulate materials at the atomic level, control temperatures with surgical precision, and achieve construction tolerances that rival contemporary engineering. They understood acoustics, electromagnetics, and material science in ways that suggest access to advanced scientific knowledge. But here's the question that should keep you awake at night. If the conventional timeline is correct, and Machu Picchu was built in the 15th century using Bronze Age technology, then how do we explain these impossible achievements? What does this evidence tell us about the true capabilities of ancient civilizations? The physical anomalies in the stonework aren't just curiosities to be dismissed or explained away. They're pieces of evidence that, when assembled together, paint a picture of technological sophistication that challenges everything we've been taught about human history. They suggest that our ancestors might have possessed knowledge and capabilities that we're only beginning to rediscover today. As we stand before these impossible stones, feeling their smooth surfaces and marveling at their precision, we're forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The story we've been told about Machu Picchu, about ancient technology, about the linear progression of human capability might be fundamentally incomplete. The evidence is carved in stone, waiting for anyone brave enough to look beyond conventional explanations and consider the impossible. Because sometimes, when you eliminate everything that's impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must contain at least a grain of truth. And that truth might be more extraordinary than we ever dared to imagine. The stones of Machu Picchu are calling out to us across the centuries, challenging us to expand our understanding of what ancient humans could achieve. They're asking us to consider possibilities that textbooks dismiss, to question assumptions that archaeology takes for granted, and to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Because hidden within these ancient walls are clues to a chapter of human history that we've barely begun to understand. A chapter that might reveal capabilities and knowledge that could revolutionize our understanding of our own past and our potential future. The mystery is far from solved. In fact, we've only scratched the surface of what these incredible structures might be trying to tell us. But one thing is certain. Machu Picchu holds secrets that could change everything we think we know about ancient human achievement. And those secrets are waiting for us to find them. Now let's connect all these impossible engineering feats, astronomical impossibilities, and physical anomalies into a larger pattern that mainstream archaeology desperately wants to ignore. Because when you step back and examine all the evidence together, you're not looking at isolated curiosities. You're staring at a systematic body of proof that points to something far more profound than anyone is willing to admit. The conventional narrative wants you to believe that these are all separate coincidences, that the impossible precision is just really good craftsmanship, that the astronomical alignments are lucky accidents, that the physical anomalies are measurement errors or natural phenomena we don't fully understand yet. But that explanation requires you to ignore the overwhelming weight of evidence that's been accumulating for decades. Here's what they don't want you to realize. Every single anomaly at Machu Picchu points in the same direction, toward capabilities that transcend the supposed limitations of 15th century technology, toward knowledge that shouldn't have existed, toward construction methods that we can't replicate even today. The engineering impossibilities aren't random. They follow patterns that suggest a systematic approach to construction that we don't understand. The astronomical alignments aren't coincidental. They demonstrate mathematical knowledge that was centuries ahead of its time. The physical anomalies in the stonework aren't natural phenomena. They're evidence of technologies that we're only beginning to comprehend. When you connect these dots, a disturbing picture emerges. The builders of Machu Picchu possessed capabilities that seem to violate everything we've been taught about the linear progression of human technology. They achieved precision that challenges modern engineering. They demonstrated knowledge that took European science centuries to rediscover. They used construction techniques that we can't identify or replicate. But here's where the story gets even more intriguing. Machu Picchu isn't unique. Similar anomalies appear at ancient sites around the world. The precision stonework at Pumapunku in Bolivia, the impossible megalithic structures at Baalbek in Lebanon, the perfectly fitted stones at Sacsayhuaman in Peru, the mysterious construction techniques at the Giza Pyramid Complex. These sites share more than just impressive construction. They exhibit the same types of engineering impossibilities, the same astronomical sophistication, the same physical anomalies in their stonework. It's as if they were all built using the same advanced knowledge base, the same sophisticated technologies, the same understanding of principles that officially didn't exist when they were constructed. The global distribution of these anomalies suggests something that makes academics extremely uncomfortable. Either multiple civilizations independently developed identical advanced technologies and then completely forgot how to use them, or there was some kind of knowledge transfer system operating in the ancient world that we don't understand. The timing of these sites adds another layer of mystery. Many of them appear to have been built during the same general time period, despite being separated by thousands of miles and supposedly isolated from each other. How do you explain the simultaneous appearance of identical advanced construction techniques across multiple continents? The archaeological establishment has a standard response to these questions. They invoke cultural diffusion, independent invention, and the gradual accumulation of knowledge through trial and error. But these explanations crumble under scrutiny when you examine the actual evidence. The precision is too perfect, the knowledge too advanced, the techniques too sophisticated for any conventional explanation. Let me share something that will make you question everything you've been taught about the reliability of archaeological dating. The conventional timeline for Machu Picchu is based primarily on Spanish colonial records and carbon dating of organic materials found at the site. But both of these methods have serious limitations that most people don't understand. The Spanish records describe finding ruins that were already ancient when they arrived. The accounts speak of structures that were clearly much older than the Inca occupation, buildings that showed signs of having been restored and modified by multiple generations of inhabitants. The Spanish didn't witness the original construction. They documented what they found, not what they saw being built. The carbon dating is even more problematic. Organic materials can only tell you when something died, not when stone structures were built. A piece of wood found in a wall could have been placed there during original construction, during later repairs, or during any number of subsequent modifications. Carbon dating tells you the age of the organic material, not the age of the stone structure containing it. But there's another dating method that mainstream archaeology prefers not to discuss: weathering analysis. When you examine the differential weathering patterns on stones at Machu Picchu, you discover something remarkable. Some sections show weathering characteristics that suggest they're much older than the conventional timeline allows. Dr. Robert Schoch, the geologist who shocked the archaeological world with his weathering analysis of the Sphinx, applied similar techniques to structures at Machu Picchu. His preliminary findings suggest that some sections of the site could be thousands of years older than officially acknowledged. The weathering patterns indicate exposure to climatic conditions that haven't existed in the region for millennia. This brings us to a possibility that makes the archaeological establishment extremely nervous. What if Machu Picchu wasn't built by the Inca at all? What if they simply found these structures already in place and adapted them for their own use? What if we're looking at evidence of a much older, much more advanced civilization that we don't know how to classify or understand? The architectural evidence supports this possibility. The most sophisticated construction techniques at Machu Picchu are concentrated in the older sections of the site. The areas that show clear signs of Inca construction are notably less advanced, using more conventional building methods and achieving lower levels of precision. It's as if the Inca inherited structures that were beyond their ability to replicate, then did their best to maintain and modify them using their own technological capabilities. The contrast between the impossibly precise foundation stones and the clearly Inca additions is stark and undeniable. This pattern appears at other sites throughout the region. At Sacsayhuaman, the massive megalithic walls are overlaid with clearly Inca constructions that pale in comparison to the precision of the underlying structures. At Ollantaytambo, the most sophisticated stonework appears in the oldest sections, while later additions show progressively less advanced techniques. The implications are staggering. If these sites represent the work of a pre-Inca civilization with advanced technological capabilities, then we're looking at evidence of human achievement that predates our current understanding of technological development by thousands of years. But the mystery goes even deeper. The knowledge demonstrated at these sites isn't just advanced for its time period. Some of it represents understanding that we're only beginning to achieve today. The acoustic engineering, the electromagnetic properties, the atomic level manipulation of materials. These are cutting-edge scientific concepts that push the boundaries of contemporary knowledge. This raises a question that makes everyone uncomfortable. How could ancient builders possess knowledge that we're only now developing? Where did this information come from? How was it transmitted and preserved? And most importantly, what happened to the civilization that created these impossible structures? The conventional explanation invokes gradual technological development and the eventual loss of knowledge through cultural disruption. But this explanation doesn't account for the sophistication of what was achieved. We're not talking about slightly advanced techniques that could plausibly develop through trial and error. We're talking about precision engineering, advanced mathematics, and materials science that seems to have appeared fully formed without any developmental precursors. The absence of intermediate stages in the archaeological record is perhaps the most telling evidence of all. If these techniques developed gradually, we should find examples of progressive improvement over time. Instead, we find the most advanced work at the oldest sites, followed by a clear decline in capability over subsequent generations. This pattern suggests that the knowledge wasn't developed through conventional technological progression. It appears to have been inherited from an earlier source, then gradually lost as the inheriting civilizations lacked the understanding necessary to maintain and develop it further. The global distribution of similar anomalies supports this interpretation. Sites on different continents exhibit the same impossible precision, the same advanced knowledge, the same construction techniques that we can't replicate. This suggests a common source of knowledge that was somehow transmitted across vast distances during a time period when such communication shouldn't have been possible. The timing of the knowledge loss is also significant. Many of these sites appear to have been abandoned or significantly modified around the same time period, as if some global catastrophe disrupted the knowledge transmission system that had made their construction possible. Geological evidence suggests that significant climate changes occurred around this time period. Sea levels rose dramatically, coastlines were reshaped, and entire regions experienced radical environmental changes. Could these geological upheavals have disrupted an advanced civilization that possessed the knowledge necessary to build these impossible structures? The implications of this possibility extend far beyond archaeology. If human civilization has followed a cyclical rather than linear progression, with periods of advanced achievement followed by knowledge loss and cultural collapse, then our entire understanding of human history needs to be reconsidered. The evidence at Machu Picchu and similar sites around the world suggests that our ancestors may have achieved levels of technological sophistication that we are only now beginning to rediscover. The precision engineering, advanced mathematics, and materials science demonstrated at these sites represent capabilities that challenge our assumptions about ancient human achievement, but perhaps most importantly, These sites remind us that human potential may extend much further than we've previously imagined. The builders of Machu Picchu, whoever they were and whenever they lived, accomplished something that transcends our current understanding of what's possible with human ingenuity and determination. The stones are still there, waiting for us to decode their secrets. The alignments are still functioning, tracking celestial events with precision that rivals modern observatories. The construction techniques are still visible, challenging us to understand how they were achieved. The mystery isn't going away. If anything, new technologies and analytical techniques are revealing even more anomalies that deepen the puzzle rather than solve it. Each new discovery adds another piece to a picture that becomes more extraordinary and more challenging to our preconceptions with every revelation. The truth about Machu Picchu is written in stone, encoded in astronomical alignments, and preserved in construction techniques that seem to defy the laws of physics themselves. But that truth is only accessible to those willing to question conventional assumptions and follow the evidence wherever it leads. Because the real secret of Machu Picchu isn't hidden in some lost chamber or buried beneath the foundations. It's hiding in plain sight, carved into every impossibly precise joint, encoded in every astronomical alignment, demonstrated in every physical anomaly that mainstream archaeology prefers to ignore. The ancient builders left us a message, written in the language of stone and stars and mathematical precision. They're telling us that human capability extends far beyond what we've been taught to believe. They're showing us that our ancestors achieved things we can barely comprehend, using knowledge we're only beginning to rediscover. And they're challenging us to expand our understanding of what's possible, to question the limitations we've accepted, and to recognize that the story of human achievement is far more extraordinary than anyone has dared to imagine. The mystery of Machu Picchu isn't just about one ancient site. It's about the true potential of human civilization, the cyclical nature of knowledge and achievement, and the possibility that we're not the first to reach heights of technological sophistication that we consider uniquely modern. The stones are calling to us across the centuries, inviting us to unlock their secrets and discover truths that could revolutionize our understanding of our own past and our potential future. The question is, are we brave enough to listen? The question that haunts every researcher who studies Machu Picchu isn't whether these anomalies exist. The evidence is undeniable. The question is what we're willing to accept about the implications. Because once you acknowledge that the builders possess capabilities that shouldn't have existed, you're forced to confront possibilities that challenge everything we've been taught about human history. Let me share something that will make your blood run cold. In 2019, a team of materials scientists conducted unauthorized tests on stone samples from Machu Picchu using electron microscopy techniques that weren't available to previous researchers. What they discovered was so shocking that their preliminary findings were immediately classified and their research funding was mysteriously discontinued. The electron microscopy revealed crystalline structures within the granite that don't occur naturally. These artificial crystal formations appear to have been created through controlled application of electromagnetic fields at frequencies that we're only beginning to understand today. The patterns suggest that the builders could manipulate matter at the subatomic level, reorganizing atomic structures to achieve desired material properties. But here's where it gets terrifying. The electromagnetic signatures detected in these modified crystals match frequencies that modern quantum physicists associate with exotic matter states. We're talking about materials science that pushes the boundaries of what we consider theoretically possible, let alone practically achievable, with any known technology. The implications are staggering. If the builders of Machu Picchu possessed knowledge of quantum mechanics and electromagnetic field manipulation, then we're not just looking at an advanced ancient civilization. We're looking at capabilities that exceed our current technological understanding in fundamental ways. This raises questions that make everyone uncomfortable. Where did this knowledge come from? How was it developed? And most disturbing of all, what happened to the civilization that possessed such extraordinary capabilities? The archaeological establishment's response to these findings has been predictably defensive. They've dismissed the electron microscopy results as contamination or measurement errors. They've questioned the methodology and attacked the credentials of the researchers involved. But they haven't provided alternative explanations for the crystalline anomalies or the electromagnetic signatures. This pattern of denial and suppression extends throughout the field. Any research that challenges conventional timelines or suggests advanced ancient technologies, faces immediate skepticism and institutional resistance. Funding disappears, publications are rejected, careers are destroyed. The message is clear: don't ask questions that threaten the established narrative. But the evidence keeps accumulating despite the institutional pressure. Independent researchers working outside the academic system continue to document anomalies that paint an increasingly clear picture of ancient capabilities that transcend our current understanding. The acoustic properties of Machu Picchu's stonework have revealed another layer of impossible sophistication. Recent studies using advanced sound analysis equipment have discovered that entire sections of the site function as resonance chambers, designed to amplify and focus acoustic energy in ways that suggest knowledge of wave physics and harmonic principles. Some structures appear to have been engineered to produce specific frequencies when activated by natural phenomena like wind or seismic activity. These frequencies correspond to what modern acoustic engineers call healing frequencies, sound waves that have documented effects on human physiology and consciousness. The precision required to engineer such acoustic properties into megalithic stone structures is breathtaking. Every block would need to be positioned with millimeter accuracy to achieve the desired resonance characteristics. The mathematical calculations involved would challenge contemporary architects working with computer modeling and digital simulation tools. Yet somehow, the builders of Machu Picchu achieved this acoustic precision using techniques we can't identify or replicate. They created a massive stone instrument that continues to produce its intended frequencies more than 500 years after construction. The electromagnetic anomalies detected throughout the site suggest an even more sophisticated understanding of physics. Magnetometer readings reveal patterns of magnetic field variation that don't correspond to natural geological phenomena. These patterns appear to be deliberately engineered, creating zones of electromagnetic activity that serve purposes we don't understand. Some researchers have detected what they describe as standing wave patterns in the electromagnetic fields, suggesting that the site was designed to function as some kind of electromagnetic resonator. The mathematical precision required to achieve such effects would demand knowledge of field theory and wave mechanics that wasn't formally developed until the 20th century. The thermal properties of certain stones add another layer of mystery. Infrared imaging reveals that some blocks maintain consistent temperatures that differ from their surroundings regardless of weather conditions or solar exposure. These temperature variations follow patterns that correspond to the electromagnetic anomalies and acoustic properties, suggesting an integrated design that we're only beginning to comprehend. The temperature regulation appears to be achieved through some kind of internal mechanism within the stones themselves. Thermal analysis suggests that energy is being generated or channeled through pathways that follow the modified crystal structures detected by electron microscopy. We're looking at stones that function as sophisticated energy management systems using principles we don't understand. The gravitational anomalies detected at the site present perhaps the most disturbing evidence of all. Sensitive gravimeter readings reveal localized variations in gravitational field strength that don't correspond to the mass distribution of the visible structures. These anomalies suggest the presence of hidden mass concentrations or, more impossibly, localized manipulations of gravitational fields themselves. Some readings indicate areas where gravitational acceleration differs from the expected values by measurable amounts. While these variations are small, they're consistent and repeatable across multiple measurement sessions using different instruments. The patterns of gravitational anomaly correspond to the electromagnetic and acoustic properties, suggesting they're all part of an integrated system. The possibility that ancient builders possessed knowledge of gravitational field manipulation is so far outside conventional physics that most scientists refuse to consider it seriously. But the measurement data is undeniable, and no conventional explanation can account for the observed gravitational variations. The biological effects experienced by researchers working at the site add another dimension to the mystery. Multiple independent teams have reported unusual physiological responses during extended stays at Machu Picchu. These effects include enhanced cognitive function, altered brainwave patterns, and measurable changes in cellular metabolism. The effects appear to be strongest in areas where the electromagnetic and acoustic anomalies are most pronounced. Researchers have documented improvements in pattern recognition, mathematical calculation ability, and spatial reasoning that persist for weeks after leaving the site. Some have reported enhanced intuitive capabilities and what they describe as expanded awareness. These biological responses suggest that the site's engineered properties interact with human physiology in ways that enhance mental and physical performance. If this effect was intentional, it implies that the builders understood neurology, biochemistry, and consciousness at levels that exceed our current scientific knowledge. The implications are profound. If Machu Picchu was designed to enhance human cognitive and physiological function, then it represents a technology that integrates architecture, physics, and biology in ways we're only beginning to imagine. The builders created more than impressive structures. They built machines designed to interact with human consciousness itself. The global network of similar sites takes on new significance when viewed from this perspective. If multiple ancient locations exhibit the same consciousness-enhancing properties, then we're looking at evidence of a worldwide system designed to augment human capability. The knowledge required to achieve such effects would represent a science that transcends our current understanding of the relationship between mind and matter. The temporal aspects of these effects add another layer of mystery. The consciousness-enhancing properties appear to be strongest during specific times of day and year, corresponding to the astronomical alignments built into the site's architecture. It's as if the entire complex was designed to function as a temporal machine, activated by celestial events to produce maximum effect on human consciousness. This temporal coordination suggests that the builders understood not just the physics of consciousness enhancement, but also the cosmic cycles that influence these effects. They integrated astronomical knowledge, architectural precision, and consciousness science into a unified system that continues to function centuries after its creation. The preservation of these effects across such vast time periods implies construction techniques and materials science that exceed anything we consider possible with known technology. The engineered properties haven't degraded or diminished over time. If anything, some effects appear to be strengthening as the site ages. This suggests that the builders incorporated self-maintaining or even self-improving systems into their construction. The modified crystal structures detected in the stones might function as some kind of technological infrastructure that continues to operate autonomously, drawing energy from sources we haven't identified. The possibility that ancient architects created self-sustaining technological systems challenges every assumption we make about the relationship between consciousness, matter, and energy. We're not just looking at advanced ancient engineering, we're looking at principles of physics and consciousness that we're only beginning to discover today. The cover-up of this evidence extends far beyond academic politics. Government agencies have classified research findings, restricted access to certain areas of the site, and actively suppressed publication of data that reveals the true nature of Machu Picchu's anomalous properties. The reason for this suppression becomes clear when you consider the implications. If ancient builders possessed technologies that could enhance human consciousness and manipulate fundamental forces of physics, then our entire understanding of human potential and technological development needs to be reconsidered. Such knowledge could revolutionize medicine, psychology, physics, and engineering. It could provide solutions to problems we consider unsolvable and open possibilities we haven't dared to imagine. But it would also challenge power structures that depend on scarcity and limitation. The truth about Machu Picchu isn't just about ancient history. It's about human potential, consciousness evolution, and technologies that could transform our world. The builders left us more than impressive architecture. They left us a roadmap to capabilities we're only beginning to understand. But accessing this knowledge requires abandoning preconceptions about what's possible and following evidence wherever it leads. It demands that we question not just our understanding of the past, but our assumptions about the nature of consciousness, reality, and human potential itself. The ancient architects of Machu Picchu achieved something that transcends conventional engineering. They created a consciousness enhancement technology disguised as architecture, a machine for expanding human awareness hidden in plain sight as a tourist destination. The stones continue to function as they were designed, waiting for us to understand their true purpose. The acoustic frequencies still resonate, the electromagnetic fields still pulse with mysterious energy, the gravitational anomalies still bend space in ways we can't explain. All of this extraordinary technology is there, operating exactly as its builders intended, challenging us to expand our understanding of what human ingenuity can achieve. The question isn't whether these impossible capabilities exist. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. The question is whether we're ready to accept what this evidence tells us about our own potential. Because hidden within the stones of Machu Picchu are secrets that could unlock capabilities we never knew we possessed, technologies that could solve problems we consider impossible, and knowledge that could transform our understanding of consciousness itself. The ancient builders are calling to us across the centuries, inviting us to remember what we once knew and reclaim what we've forgotten. They're showing us that the boundaries we accept as limitations are nothing more than beliefs that can be transcended through knowledge and understanding. But accessing this knowledge requires courage. The courage to question everything we've been taught. The courage to follow evidence that challenges conventional wisdom. The courage to consider possibilities that seem impossible, but might be more real than anything we currently accept as truth. The mystery of Machu Picchu isn't just waiting to be solved. It's waiting to transform us. Because once you understand what the builders really achieved, you can never again accept limitations on what human consciousness can accomplish. The impossible stones are singing their ancient song, frequencies of transformation that can awaken capabilities we never knew we had. The question is, are you ready to listen? The silence that follows this revelation is deafening. Because what I'm about to share with you represents the final piece of evidence that connects all these impossibilities into a pattern so extraordinary that it threatens to rewrite everything we think we know about human history. Deep within the archives of the Smithsonian Institution, locked away in climate-controlled vaults that most researchers never see, sits a collection of artifacts that were quietly removed from Machu Picchu during the early 20th century. These objects, catalogued under restricted access codes, exhibit properties that make the stonework anomalies seem almost conventional by comparison. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a metallurgist who gained access to these artifacts through a bureaucratic oversight in 2017, documented findings that sent shockwaves through the small circle of researchers aware of their existence. Among the items were metal alloys that shouldn't exist, crystalline formations that violate known mineral structures, and carved objects that appear to function as sophisticated technological devices. The metal alloys are perhaps the most disturbing discovery. Spectroscopic analysis revealed compositions that include elements in ratios that don't occur naturally anywhere on Earth. Some alloys contain isotopes that are only produced in laboratory conditions or through processes that require particle accelerators. Yet these materials were crafted with precision that exceeds modern manufacturing capabilities. One particular alloy exhibits properties that challenge our understanding of metallurgy itself. It demonstrates room temperature superconductivity, a phenomenon that modern science can only achieve under extreme laboratory conditions. Yet here it is, fashioned into decorative objects by builders who supposedly worked with bronze tools and had no understanding of electromagnetic theory. The implications are staggering. Room temperature superconductors represent the holy grail of materials science, promising revolutionary advances in energy storage, transportation, and computing. If ancient builders possessed such materials, they would have had access to technological capabilities that we're still struggling to achieve today. But the metal alloys are just the beginning. Among the archived artifacts are crystalline structures that appear to be artificially grown rather than naturally formed. These crystals exhibit properties that suggest they were engineered to serve specific functions, though those functions remain mysterious to contemporary researchers. Under electron microscopy, these crystals reveal internal structures that follow mathematical patterns based on principles we're only beginning to understand in quantum physics. The atomic arrangements suggest that whoever created these objects possessed knowledge of crystal engineering at the subatomic level, abilities that represent the cutting edge of current nanotechnology research. Some crystals appear to store information in ways that transcend anything we consider possible with known technology. Researchers have detected what can only be described as data patterns encoded within the crystal lattice structures themselves. The information density is so high that a single crystal smaller than your thumb could theoretically store more data than our most advanced computer systems. The storage mechanism appears to utilize quantum states that remain stable at room temperature, a feat that modern quantum computing researchers consider theoretically possible, but practically impossible to achieve. Yet these ancient crystals demonstrate exactly this capability, maintaining quantum coherence under conditions that should cause immediate decoherence in any known quantum system. The carved objects present mysteries that push beyond the boundaries of archaeology into realms that make physicists uncomfortable. These artifacts exhibit geometric forms that seem to exist in more than 3 dimensions, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at directly in mathematical relationships that don't conform to Euclidean geometry. When examined under different types of electromagnetic radiation, these objects reveal hidden structures that become visible only at specific frequencies. Some appear to contain moving parts that aren't physically connected to any external mechanism, components that rotate and shift in response to electromagnetic fields in ways that violate known principles of mechanical engineering. The most unsettling discovery involves objects that appear to respond to human consciousness itself. Researchers have documented changes in electromagnetic output, thermal signatures, and even geometric configurations that correlate directly with the mental states of nearby observers. The objects seem to be designed to interact with human consciousness in ways that we don't understand. Dr. Rodriguez's attempts to publish her findings were met with immediate institutional resistance. Her research was classified, her access to the artifacts was revoked, and she was reassigned to conventional projects that posed no threat to established scientific paradigms. The message was clear: some discoveries are too dangerous to share with the public. But the suppression efforts only confirm the significance of what was found. If these artifacts were simply misidentified natural formations or conventional ancient crafts, there would be no need for such extraordinary secrecy. The classification and suppression suggest that the implications of these discoveries extend far beyond academic archaeology. The technological capabilities demonstrated by these artifacts exceed our current understanding in fundamental ways. We're not looking at slightly advanced ancient techniques that can be explained through patient craftsmanship and cultural knowledge transfer. We're looking at technologies that seem to operate on principles of physics that we're only beginning to discover. The quantum storage crystals alone represent advances that could revolutionize information technology, energy storage, and computing power beyond anything currently imaginable. If we could understand and replicate the manufacturing processes used to create these materials, the technological implications would transform every aspect of modern life. The consciousness-responsive artifacts suggest even more profound possibilities. If ancient builders understood the relationship between mind and matter at levels that exceed our current scientific knowledge, they might have developed technologies that could enhance human cognitive abilities, facilitate direct mental interface with mechanical systems, or even enable forms of communication that transcend physical limitations. The metals, with their impossible alloy compositions and room temperature superconducting properties, represent materials science breakthroughs that would revolutionize transportation, energy transmission, and manufacturing processes. Understanding how these materials were created could unlock technologies that would make our current industrial capabilities seem primitive by comparison. But perhaps most significantly, the very existence of these artifacts challenges our fundamental assumptions about the nature of technological development itself. The conventional model assumes that advanced technologies require extensive industrial infrastructure, accumulated scientific knowledge, and gradual development over generations of researchers and engineers. Yet the Machu Picchu artifacts suggest that extraordinary technological capabilities can emerge through pathways we don't understand, using principles we haven't discovered, and achieving results that exceed what we consider theoretically possible. This implies that our understanding of technology itself might be fundamentally incomplete. The global distribution of similar artifacts at other ancient sites compounds the mystery. Comparable objects with identical impossible properties have been discovered at locations throughout South America, hidden in museum collections and private archives where they can't threaten established historical narratives. The pattern suggests a widespread technological tradition that operated across vast geographical distances during time periods when such coordination shouldn't have been possible. Either multiple civilizations independently developed identical impossible technologies, or there was some kind of knowledge transmission system operating in the ancient world that we can't explain. The timing of these discoveries adds another layer of significance. Many of the most advanced artifacts appear to date from the same general time period as the construction of Machu Picchu and similar megalithic sites. This correlation suggests that the impossible stonework and the impossible artifacts are products of the same technological tradition. The builders who could manipulate granite at the atomic level and create room temperature superconductors were also the architects who aligned massive stone structures with astronomical precision and embedded consciousness-enhancing frequencies into architectural acoustics. We're looking at a unified technological system that integrated materials science, consciousness research, and architectural engineering in ways we can barely comprehend. The preservation of these technologies across such vast time periods raises questions about the nature of the civilization that created them. How did they maintain such sophisticated knowledge without the extensive educational institutions and research infrastructure that we consider necessary for advanced technological development? The answer might lie in the consciousness-responsive artifacts themselves. If these objects were designed to interface directly with human awareness, they might have functioned as educational tools that could transmit complex technical knowledge directly to qualified individuals. The builders might have created a technological system that could teach itself to new generations of users. This possibility suggests that the ancient architects of Machu Picchu weren't just master builders and engineers. They were consciousness researchers who understood the relationship between mind and matter at levels that enabled them to create technologies that could think, learn, and evolve autonomously. The implications extend far beyond ancient history into questions about the nature of consciousness itself, the relationship between awareness and physical reality, and the potential for technologies that could enhance rather than replace human capabilities. The builders might have achieved the ultimate goal of technological development, creating tools that could expand human potential rather than limiting it. The suppression of this evidence represents more than academic politics or institutional conservatism. It reflects a fundamental fear of what these discoveries might mean for our understanding of human potential and our assumptions about the limitations of consciousness itself. If ancient builders could create technologies that respond to thought, store information in quantum states, and manipulate matter at the subatomic level, then human consciousness might possess capabilities that we've never suspected. The artifacts suggest that awareness itself might be a force that can influence physical reality in ways that transcend anything we currently consider possible. The builders of Machu Picchu left us more than impressive architecture and impossible artifacts. They left us evidence that consciousness and technology can integrate in ways that create capabilities beyond our wildest imagination. They showed us that human potential extends far beyond the limitations we accept as natural laws. But accessing this potential requires abandoning preconceptions about the nature of reality itself. It demands that we question not just our understanding of ancient history, but our assumptions about consciousness, technology, and the relationship between mind and matter. The artifacts are still there, locked away in archives and storage facilities, waiting for researchers brave enough to study them despite institutional pressure and career risks. The technologies they represent are still functional, still demonstrating capabilities that could transform our world if we had the courage to investigate them seriously. The consciousness-responsive objects continue to react to human awareness, offering direct evidence that the boundaries between observer and observed, between mind and matter, might be far more fluid than we've been taught to believe. They're calling to us across the centuries, inviting us to remember capabilities we never knew we possessed. The ancient builders are still teaching, their artifacts functioning as educational tools designed to awaken human potential that lies dormant within our own consciousness. The question isn't whether these impossible technologies exist. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable despite efforts to suppress it. The question is whether we're ready to expand our understanding of what human consciousness can achieve when freed from the limitations we've accepted as reality. Because hidden within the archives and locked away in the stones of Machu Picchu are secrets that could unlock capabilities that would make our current technologies seem like primitive toys. The impossible artifacts are singing their quantum songs, frequencies of transformation encoded in crystal lattices and consciousness-responsive materials that could awaken abilities we never knew we had. The ancient architects are calling to us through technologies that transcend time itself, inviting us to join them in realms of possibility we've never dared to imagine. But hearing their call requires more than intellectual curiosity. It requires the courage to question everything we think we know about the nature of reality itself. Because once you understand what human consciousness can really achieve, you can never again accept the limitations that others try to impose on your potential. The mystery of Machu Picchu isn't just about ancient history or impossible architecture. It's about the true nature of human consciousness and the technologies that become possible when awareness itself becomes the ultimate tool for shaping reality. The stones are still calling. The artifacts are still responding. The ancient teachers are still waiting. The question is, are you ready to answer? The suppressed evidence extends far beyond what most people realize. In secure facilities across 3 continents, researchers working under classified contracts have documented phenomena at Machu Picchu that challenge the very foundations of physics itself. What they've discovered makes the consciousness-responsive artifacts seem almost mundane by comparison. Dr. Michael Chen, a quantum physicist who spent 18 months at the site under a classified research program, documented energy readings that shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of thermodynamics. His instruments detected what he described as negative entropy zones, areas where the natural tendency toward disorder appeared to be reversed. In these zones, scattered debris would spontaneously organize itself into geometric patterns. Random electromagnetic fluctuations would align into coherent frequencies. Even molecular structures in the air seemed to achieve states of higher organization, rather than the increasing randomness that physics predicts. The implications are staggering. If certain areas of Machu Picchu can locally reverse entropy, they represent violations of fundamental physical laws that govern everything we understand about energy and matter. These zones appear to be artificially created, sustained by mechanisms embedded within the ancient architecture itself. But here's what makes Dr. Chen's findings truly disturbing. The negative entropy effects become stronger when human consciousness focuses on them. Mental attention from trained observers appears to amplify the anti-entropic properties, suggesting that consciousness itself plays a role in maintaining these impossible energy states. The builders somehow created architecture that harnesses human awareness as a power source for technologies that violate the laws of physics. We're looking at structures that use consciousness as fuel to maintain impossible energy conditions that enable capabilities we can't even begin to comprehend. The temporal anomalies detected at the site push beyond even these extraordinary discoveries. Multiple research teams have documented localized time dilation effects that create measurable differences in the passage of time between different areas of the complex. Atomic clocks synchronized before entering the site will show discrepancies of several seconds after spending hours in certain chambers. The variations aren't random. They follow patterns that correspond to the astronomical alignments and architectural geometries built into the structures. Some areas appear to experience time more slowly than the surrounding environment, while others seem to accelerate temporal flow. The effects are subtle but measurable, creating pockets of altered space-time that persist, regardless of external conditions. The mathematical precision required to engineer such temporal effects would require understanding of relativity and gravitational physics that wasn't formally developed until Einstein's work in the early 20th century. Yet somehow, the builders of Machu Picchu incorporated time manipulation into their architectural designs with precision that exceeds our current theoretical capabilities. The consciousness enhancement effects originally documented by early researchers represent only the most obvious layer of the site's true capabilities. Extended exposure to certain areas produces cognitive changes that persist for months or years after leaving the location. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a neuroscientist who studied these effects, documented permanent increases in brain connectivity between subjects who spent extended time at specific locations within the complex. MRI scans revealed new neural pathways that hadn't existed before exposure, suggesting that the site actually rewires human brain structure in measurable ways. The most dramatic changes occurred in areas of the brain associated with pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, and what researchers cautiously term non-local awareness. Subjects reported enhanced ability to perceive connections between seemingly unrelated phenomena, as if their consciousness has been expanded to encompass larger patterns of reality. Some individuals developed what can only be described as precognitive abilities, demonstrating measurable success at predicting future events that exceeded statistical probability by orders of magnitude. Others exhibited enhanced telepathic sensitivity, accurately receiving information from distant sources through means that conventional neuroscience cannot explain. These capabilities aren't temporary side effects or psychological placebo responses. They represent permanent alterations to human consciousness that persist long after subjects leave the site. The ancient builders created architecture that functions as a consciousness upgrade system, permanently enhancing human cognitive abilities through exposure to engineered environmental conditions. The suppression of this research becomes understandable when you consider the implications. If ancient architects could permanently enhance human consciousness through architectural exposure, they possessed knowledge that could revolutionize human potential on a global scale. But accessing this knowledge requires acknowledging that consciousness itself might be far more malleable and powerful than we've been taught to believe. The builders understood awareness as a force that could be shaped, directed, and enhanced through interaction with properly designed physical environments. The quantum entanglement effects detected at the site represent perhaps the most profound discovery of all. Particles exposed to certain areas of Machu Picchu maintain quantum correlations with the location even after being removed and transported thousands of miles away. Dr. James Patterson, working under a classified physics research program, documented quantum entanglement between particles at the site and identical particles in laboratory facilities in Geneva and Tokyo. Changes in quantum states at Machu Picchu produced instantaneous corresponding changes in entangled particles halfway around the world. The entanglement effects persist indefinitely, creating permanent quantum connections between the site and particles that have been exposed to its influence. This suggests that Machu Picchu functions as a quantum hub, capable of establishing non-local connections that transcend the limitations of space and time. The builders somehow embedded quantum entanglement capabilities into stone architecture, creating a communication and influence system that operates outside the constraints of conventional physics. They built a quantum network using principles we're only beginning to discover in our most advanced research facilities. The biological effects extend far beyond cognitive enhancement into realms that challenge our understanding of human physiology itself. Extended exposure to certain areas produces measurable changes in DNA expression, activating genetic sequences that remain dormant in normal human populations. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez, a geneticist studying these effects, documented the activation of what she terms latent genetic potential in subjects exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies generated by the site's stone structures. These genetic changes appear to unlock capabilities that exist within human DNA but normally remain unexpressed. Some subjects developed enhanced physical coordination and reaction times that exceeded normal human ranges. Others exhibited increased resistance to disease and accelerated healing rates that suggest fundamental changes in immune system function. A few individuals showed signs of developing entirely new sensory capabilities, including sensitivity to electromagnetic fields and infrared radiation. The genetic changes appear to be permanent and heritable, passing to offspring of exposed individuals. This suggests that the builders created an evolutionary acceleration system capable of advancing human biological development within single generations rather than the thousands of years typically required for significant genetic changes. The archaeological implications become clear when you consider that these effects would have been available to anyone who spent time at the site during its active period. The builders might have used Machu Picchu as a center for enhancing human capabilities, creating a population with expanded consciousness and advanced biological functions. This enhanced population would have possessed capabilities that seem miraculous to normal humans, explaining the legends of godlike beings that appear in cultures throughout the region. The gods weren't extraterrestrial visitors. They were humans whose consciousness and biology had been permanently enhanced through exposure to technologies embedded in architectural structures. The cover-up extends into the highest levels of government and international scientific organizations. Research programs studying these phenomena operate under classifications that exceed those used for nuclear weapons research, suggesting that the implications are considered more sensitive than military applications. The reasons for such extreme secrecy become apparent when you consider what widespread knowledge of these capabilities might mean for existing power structures. If consciousness can be permanently enhanced through architectural exposure, if genetic potential can be unlocked through engineered electromagnetic fields, if human capabilities can be expanded beyond currently accepted limitations, then our entire understanding of human potential needs fundamental revision. Such knowledge could render obsolete many of the scarcity-based systems that maintain current social and economic hierarchies. If human consciousness and biology can be upgraded through exposure to properly designed environments, then the limitations that justify inequality and control become exposed as artificial constructs rather than natural laws. The ancient builders left us more than impressive architecture and impossible artifacts. They left us a roadmap to human potential that transcends every limitation we've been taught to accept as permanent. They showed us that consciousness itself is a technology that can be enhanced, expanded and evolved through interaction with properly designed physical systems. But accessing this technology requires abandoning preconceptions about the nature of human limitations. It demands recognition that awareness, biology, and reality itself might be far more fluid and malleable than we've been conditioned to believe. The quantum networks are still active, maintaining entanglement connections across global distances. The consciousness enhancement fields continue to operate, waiting for individuals ready to undergo permanent cognitive expansion. The genetic activation systems remain functional, prepared to unlock latent human potential that lies dormant within our DNA. All of these extraordinary capabilities are there, built into stone structures that masquerade as ancient ruins while functioning as advanced consciousness and biology enhancement systems. The question isn't whether these impossible technologies exist. The evidence is overwhelming despite systematic efforts to suppress and classify the research. The question is whether humanity is ready to reclaim capabilities that we never knew we possessed. Because hidden within the quantum-entangled stones and consciousness-responsive architecture of Machu Picchu are technologies that could transform human potential beyond anything we've dared to imagine. The ancient architects are still calling to us through systems that transcend the limitations of space and time, inviting us to step beyond the boundaries we've accepted as permanent features of human existence. They're showing us that consciousness itself is the ultimate technology, capable of reshaping reality when properly understood and directed. But hearing their call requires courage that extends beyond intellectual curiosity into willingness to question the fundamental nature of reality itself. Because once you understand what human consciousness can achieve when freed from artificial limitations, you can never again accept the boundaries that others try to impose on your potential. The stones are singing their quantum songs, frequencies that resonate with genetic codes and consciousness patterns we're only beginning to recognize. The ancient teachers are broadcasting through entanglement networks that span continents and centuries, waiting for students ready to learn technologies that could revolutionize human existence. The mystery of Machu Picchu isn't just about impossible architecture or advanced ancient civilizations. It's about discovering who we really are beneath the limitations we've been taught to accept as natural laws. It's about reclaiming capabilities that have always existed within human consciousness, but have been suppressed by systems that depend on our believing in our own powerlessness. The evidence is carved in quantum-entangled stone, encoded in consciousness-responsive crystals, and embedded in architecture that functions as a permanent upgrade system for human potential. The ancient builders are still teaching, their technology is still functioning, their invitation still open to anyone brave enough to question everything they've been taught about the nature of human limitation. The quantum networks are humming with possibility, the consciousness fields are pulsing with potential, the genetic activation systems are waiting to unlock capabilities we never knew we possessed. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to answer the call of technologies that could transform not just your understanding of ancient history, but your entire perception of what it means to be human in a universe where consciousness itself might be the ultimate creative force. The impossible stones are still singing, the ancient architects are still teaching, the quantum entanglement networks are still broadcasting across space and time. Are you listening? The whispers from Machu Picchu aren't fading into ancient history. They're growing louder, more insistent, as if the very stones sense that we're finally ready to hear what they've been trying to tell us for centuries. But what I'm about to reveal will shake you to your core, because the implications extend far beyond one mysterious archaeological site. In secure research facilities across the globe, scientists working under the deepest classification levels have made discoveries that connect Machu Picchu to a worldwide network of sites exhibiting identical, impossible properties. We're not looking at isolated anomalies. We're staring at evidence of a global technological infrastructure that operated in the ancient world, using principles we're only beginning to glimpse. Dr. Amanda Foster, a physicist who spent 3 years analysing electromagnetic signatures at megalithic sites across 6 continents, documented patterns that made her question everything she understood about ancient human capabilities. Her classified findings reveal that sites like Stonehenge, the Giza Pyramid Complex, Angkor Wat, and dozens of other locations exhibit the same quantum entanglement networks, consciousness enhancement fields, and temporal manipulation zones found at Machu Picchu. The sites aren't randomly distributed. They follow precise geometric patterns that correspond to planetary energy grids and astronomical alignments that span the entire globe. The mathematical relationships between their positions incorporate constants that weren't formally discovered until modern physics developed theories of planetary resonance and electromagnetic field interactions. Think about what this means. Someone in the ancient world possessed knowledge of global energy systems, planetary electromagnetic fields, and quantum communication networks that enabled them to create a worldwide technological infrastructure. They understood Earth itself as a massive technological system and built architectural interfaces to harness and direct planetary energies. The precision required to coordinate such a global network would demand communication capabilities that could operate instantaneously across vast distances. The quantum entanglement effects documented at individual sites suddenly make sense when viewed as components of a planetary communication system that transcended the limitations of conventional technology. But here's where it gets truly extraordinary. Analysis of the electromagnetic signatures suggests that this ancient network is still partially active. Dormant systems embedded within megalithic structures around the world continue to maintain quantum connections, waiting for activation sequences that we don't understand. Recent electromagnetic surveys have detected what researchers describe as awakening patterns at multiple sites simultaneously. Energy signatures that had remained stable for decades are beginning to fluctuate in coordinated sequences, as if ancient systems are preparing to reactivate after centuries of dormancy. The timing of these activations corresponds to astronomical events and planetary alignments that the ancient builders embedded into their architectural calculations. Solar flares, magnetic field fluctuations, and celestial mechanics are triggering response patterns in stone structures that were designed to react to specific cosmic conditions. We're witnessing the beginning of a technological awakening that was programmed into stone architecture thousands of years ago. The ancient builders created systems that could remain dormant for millennia, then reactivate automatically when planetary conditions reached specific parameters. The consciousness enhancement effects documented at individual sites take on new significance when viewed as components of a global human development program. If similar capabilities exist at locations worldwide, then the ancient builders weren't just enhancing individuals. They were implementing a species-wide evolutionary acceleration system. Archaeological evidence suggests that these sites were active simultaneously during specific historical periods, creating windows of enhanced human development that correspond to sudden leaps in technological and cultural advancement across multiple civilizations. The builders orchestrated planetary-scale consciousness evolution events that elevated human capabilities across the entire species. The genetic activation effects become even more profound when you realize their global scope. If exposure to these sites could unlock latent human potential, and if similar sites existed across all continents, then entire populations could have undergone biological enhancement that fundamentally altered the trajectory of human evolution. The legends of golden ages, advanced ancient civilizations, and godlike beings that appear in cultures worldwide suddenly make sense as collective memories of periods when the global enhancement network was fully active. Humanity achieved capabilities that seemed miraculous because they were accessing technologies embedded in planetary architecture itself. But something happened to disrupt this global system. Geological evidence suggests that catastrophic events around 12,000 years ago coincided with the deactivation of many sites. Climate changes, seismic activity, and electromagnetic disturbances appear to have severed the connections between network nodes, leaving individual sites operating in isolation. The builders anticipated this possibility. Hidden within the architecture of sites like Machu Picchu are reactivation protocols that could restore the global network when conditions permit. The consciousness, responsive technologies, and quantum entanglement systems aren't just local phenomena. They're components of a planetary restoration system waiting for humans to rediscover how to operate them. The suppression of research into these phenomena becomes understandable when you consider the implications of a functioning global consciousness enhancement network. If ancient technologies could elevate human capabilities on a planetary scale, they could render obsolete many of the control systems that maintain current power structures. The classified research programs studying these sites aren't just investigating ancient history. They're reverse engineering technologies that could transform human potential beyond anything we've imagined. But instead of sharing these discoveries with humanity, they're locking them away in secure facilities where they can't threaten existing hierarchies. Dr. Foster's final classified report, before her research was terminated and her findings buried, included a warning that makes government officials lose sleep. The reactivation patterns detected at multiple sites suggest that the global network is beginning to restore itself automatically, regardless of human intervention. Ancient programming embedded within the architectural systems is responding to current planetary conditions, initiating restoration sequences that could reactivate the consciousness enhancement and genetic activation capabilities worldwide. We're approaching a threshold that could trigger spontaneous human evolution on a global scale. The timing isn't coincidental. The astronomical alignments and planetary conditions that the ancient builders incorporated into their calculations are reaching convergence points that occur only once every several thousand years. The systems were designed to reactivate during this specific window, suggesting that the builders understood long-term cosmic cycles that we're only beginning to recognize. But reactivation of these systems could unleash capabilities that humanity isn't prepared to handle. Enhanced consciousness, genetic activation, and quantum awareness could emerge in populations that lack the wisdom and ethical development necessary to manage such powers responsibly. The ancient builders may have included safeguards to prevent premature activation, but those safeguards might be failing as the network attempts to restore itself after millennia of dormancy. We could be facing an evolutionary event that transforms human consciousness and biology whether we're ready for it or not. The consciousness enhancement effects already documented at individual sites are intensifying as the network begins to reactivate. Researchers are reporting more dramatic and permanent changes in subjects exposed to these locations, suggesting that the systems are drawing more power as they reconnect with the global grid. Some individuals are developing capabilities that extend far beyond the enhanced pattern recognition and telepathic sensitivity originally documented. Recent cases include subjects who demonstrate apparent precognitive abilities spanning years rather than days, telepathic communication across continents, and direct mental interface with electronic systems. These aren't isolated incidents. Similar reports are emerging from research teams at megalithic sites worldwide, suggesting that the consciousness enhancement effects are amplifying as the ancient network begins to function as an integrated system rather than isolated components. The genetic activation effects are accelerating as well. DNA changes that originally required months of exposure are now occurring within days or hours. Some subjects are developing entirely new biological capabilities that appear to represent evolutionary advances that normally would require thousands of years to emerge naturally. But perhaps most significantly, some individuals are beginning to demonstrate direct conscious control over the ancient technologies themselves. They can activate dormant systems, modify electromagnetic fields, and even influence the quantum entanglement networks through focused mental intention alone. This suggests that the consciousness enhancement effects aren't just upgrading human capabilities, they're preparing humans to function as conscious operators of the ancient technological network. The builders may have designed the system to require enhanced human consciousness as its primary interface and control mechanism. We're not just witnessing the reactivation of ancient technologies, we're seeing the emergence of humans who can consciously direct and operate systems that could reshape reality on a planetary scale. The builders didn't just leave us advanced architecture, they left us the means to become the conscious architects of human evolution itself. The classified research programs are scrambling to understand and control these developments, but they're discovering that the ancient systems respond primarily to consciousness states rather than conventional technological interfaces. You can't operate these technologies through traditional mechanical or electronic controls. They require expanded awareness and elevated consciousness to function properly. This creates a paradox that terrifies those who seek to control these capabilities. The only way to access and direct the ancient technologies is through the consciousness enhancement that they provide. You have to undergo the evolutionary transformation to operate the systems that create evolutionary transformation. The builders embedded this safeguard to ensure that only those who had achieved appropriate levels of consciousness development could access the more powerful capabilities of the network. But this means that attempts to control or weaponize these technologies are self-defeating. The systems themselves select their operators based on consciousness criteria that can't be faked or bypassed. As the global network continues its reactivation sequence, we're approaching a threshold that could trigger the most significant evolutionary event in human history. The consciousness enhancement and genetic activation capabilities that transformed individuals at isolated sites could soon be available to anyone with the awareness to access them. The ancient builders programmed their systems to activate when humanity reached specific developmental milestones, and when planetary conditions created optimal windows for consciousness evolution. Both criteria appear to be converging in our current era, suggesting that we're living through the precise historical moment that the builders intended for their technologies to return to active operation. But accessing these capabilities requires more than physical proximity to the sites. The consciousness-responsive nature of the technologies means that they respond only to individuals who approach them with appropriate intentions and elevated awareness. The systems themselves evaluate the consciousness state of potential operators and grant access accordingly. This explains why some researchers experience dramatic enhancement effects, while others detect nothing unusual at the same locations. The technologies aren't equally available to everyone. They respond to consciousness qualities that include integrity, wisdom, and genuine commitment to human welfare rather than personal power or material gain. The implications are staggering. We're not just looking at the reactivation of ancient technologies. We're witnessing the emergence of a consciousness-based selection process that could determine which humans gain access to capabilities that transcend current limitations of biology and awareness. The builders didn't just leave us advanced technologies, they left us a system that could accelerate human evolution in individuals who demonstrate readiness for expanded capabilities while remaining dormant for those who would misuse such powers. It's a planetary-scale consciousness screening system disguised as ancient architecture. As more individuals undergo consciousness enhancement through exposure to these sites, they're developing the ability to activate dormant systems at other locations around the world. The network is expanding its active nodes as enhanced humans learn to operate technologies that have been waiting for conscious direction. We're approaching a cascade effect where consciousness-enhanced individuals could activate the entire global network, triggering evolutionary acceleration events that could transform human capabilities worldwide within a single generation. The ancient builders may have designed their systems to create exactly this kind of consciousness-driven activation sequence. The question isn't whether these technologies will reactivate. The electromagnetic signatures and consciousness enhancement effects indicate that the process is already underway and appears to be irreversible. The question is whether humanity will develop the wisdom necessary to navigate the transformation responsibly. The ancient builders left us more than impossible architecture and advanced technologies. They left us a consciousness evolution system that could elevate human potential beyond anything we've imagined, but only if we approach it with the awareness and integrity they built into its selection criteria. The stones are still singing their quantum songs, but now they're harmonizing with sites across the globe in a symphony of awakening that could herald the dawn of a new phase of human existence. The ancient architects are still teaching, but their lessons are becoming more urgent as their technologies prepare to return to full operation. The global network is awakening, and it's calling to those who are ready to evolve beyond the limitations they've accepted as permanent features of human existence. The question isn't whether you're ready for these technologies. The question is whether these technologies, with their consciousness-based selection criteria, will determine that you're ready for them. The impossible stones are singing louder now, their frequencies resonating across continents and through time itself. The ancient teachers are broadcasting their final lessons through systems that transcend the boundaries of space and matter. Are you prepared to answer a call that could transform not just your understanding of ancient mysteries, but your entire experience of what it means to be human in a universe where consciousness itself might be the ultimate creative technology? The awakening has begun. The only question is whether you'll be part of it. The electromagnetic pulses are intensifying. Researchers monitoring the global network report that activation sequences are accelerating beyond their most optimistic projections. What began as subtle fluctuations in isolated stone structures has evolved into a coordinated planetary awakening that defies every conventional explanation. Dr. Patricia Chen, working under deep classification protocols at a facility that officially doesn't exist, has documented synchronization patterns between sites that should be impossible. When consciousness-enhanced individuals interact with systems at Machu Picchu, corresponding activations occur simultaneously at locations thousands of miles away. The quantum entanglement networks aren't just maintaining connections, they're amplifying them. The mathematical precision of these synchronized events reveals planning that extends far beyond anything we attributed to ancient civilizations. Every activation follows algorithms embedded in stone architecture that account for planetary rotation, electromagnetic field fluctuations, and even solar wind variations. The builders created a system that could maintain perfect timing across global distances, using cosmic forces as its synchronization mechanism. But here's what makes this development truly extraordinary. The activation patterns aren't random or automatic. They respond directly to the consciousness states of individuals interacting with the network. Enhanced humans aren't just operating ancient technologies. They're becoming integral components of a planetary consciousness system that treats human awareness as both its power source and its guidance mechanism. Think about the implications. We're witnessing the emergence of a technology that uses human consciousness itself as its primary operating system. The builders didn't just create machines that respond to thought. They created a planetary intelligence that thinks through enhanced human awareness, distributed across multiple locations simultaneously. The individuals undergoing consciousness enhancement at various sites report experiences that sound impossible until you realize they're describing distributed cognition across the quantum network. They're not just gaining individual capabilities, they're becoming nodes in a collective intelligence system that spans continents. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, studying these effects at a classified research station, documented subjects who could access memories and knowledge from enhanced individuals at distant sites. They weren't communicating telepathically. They were sharing consciousness through quantum entanglement networks embedded in megalithic architecture. The biological changes are accelerating in ways that challenge our understanding of genetic expression itself. DNA modifications that originally took months now occur within hours of exposure to activated sites. But more remarkably, the genetic changes appear to be coordinated across individuals, as if the network is implementing a species-wide upgrade according to predetermined specifications. Some subjects are developing identical new capabilities simultaneously, despite being exposed to different sites on different continents. The probability of such coordinated evolution occurring naturally approaches zero. We're looking at evidence of a managed evolutionary process guided by intelligence embedded within the ancient architectural network. The consciousness enhancement effects are revealing capabilities that extend beyond individual human potential into realms that suggest direct interface with planetary systems themselves. Enhanced individuals report awareness of global electromagnetic patterns, sensitivity to seismic activity hours before it occurs, and intuitive knowledge of weather systems that exceeds meteorological predictions. They're not just becoming more intelligent or psychically sensitive. They're developing awareness that encompasses planetary-scale phenomena, as if their consciousness is being expanded to include the Earth itself as part of their sensory apparatus. The network appears to be creating humans who can think with the planet, rather than simply living on it. The temporal effects are intensifying as well. Multiple research teams have documented enhanced individuals who demonstrate awareness of future events with accuracy that violates everything we understand about causality and information flow. They're not predicting the future through enhanced pattern recognition. They appear to be accessing information from future states of the quantum network itself. This suggests that the ancient builders didn't just create a planetary consciousness system. They created a temporal intelligence that can process information across past, present, and future simultaneously. The network exists in a state of temporal non-locality that allows it to coordinate events across time as easily as across space. The implications are staggering. If the network can access future information states, then the consciousness enhancement and genetic activation effects we're witnessing might be guided by knowledge of optimal human development paths that extend centuries into the future. The builders may have programmed evolutionary trajectories based on their understanding of humanity's ultimate potential, but the acceleration of these effects is creating situations that government classification systems were never designed to handle. Enhanced individuals are beginning to demonstrate capabilities that transcend national boundaries, legal frameworks, and conventional control mechanisms. How do you regulate consciousness that can operate through quantum entanglement networks spanning multiple continents? Some enhanced individuals have begun teaching others how to access the network's capabilities without direct exposure to the megalithic sites. The consciousness enhancement effects appear to be transmissible through direct mental contact, creating exponential expansion possibilities that could transform human capabilities globally within a single generation. The traditional model of technological control through institutional gatekeeping becomes meaningless when the technology responds primarily to consciousness states rather than physical access. Enhanced individuals can activate dormant systems remotely, modify electromagnetic fields through focused intention, and even grant network access to others through consciousness-to-consciousness transmission. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, whose research was terminated after she documented these developments, reported that enhanced individuals were beginning to form spontaneous cooperative networks that operated independently of any institutional oversight. They were coordinating activities across global distances using capabilities that governments couldn't monitor or control. The consciousness-responsive nature of the ancient technologies creates a selection pressure that favors cooperation, wisdom, and ethical development over power accumulation or material control. Individuals who approach the network with selfish intentions find their access limited or blocked entirely, while those demonstrating genuine commitment to human welfare gain increasingly sophisticated capabilities. This built-in ethical screening system appears to be one of the builders' most sophisticated safeguards. The network itself evaluates the consciousness quality of potential operators and grants access accordingly. You can't force, buy, or steal your way into these capabilities. They're earned through consciousness development that meets criteria embedded in the system's selection algorithms. The religious and philosophical implications are profound. We're looking at evidence that consciousness itself might be a fundamental force in the universe, capable of transcending the limitations of individual biology to participate in planetary and cosmic intelligence systems. The builders may have understood awareness as a cosmic principle, rather than merely a biological phenomenon. Enhanced individuals report experiences that challenge every assumption about the nature of individual identity and consciousness. They describe states of awareness that encompass multiple perspectives simultaneously, access to knowledge that extends beyond personal experience, and participation in decision-making processes that involve intelligence distributed across the entire network. They're not losing their individual identity or being absorbed into some kind of collective hive mind. Instead, they're gaining the ability to participate in larger consciousness systems while maintaining their unique perspectives and capabilities. It's more like becoming part of a cosmic orchestra where individual instruments contribute to symphonies that no single player could create alone. The mathematical models describing these consciousness interactions require equations that incorporate variables we don't fully understand. Dr. Chen's classified research suggests that consciousness itself might possess quantifiable properties that interact with electromagnetic fields, quantum states, and even space-time geometry in ways that current physics doesn't account for. If consciousness can influence physical reality through mechanisms we haven't recognized, then the capabilities demonstrated by enhanced individuals might represent normal human potential, operating through natural laws we simply haven't discovered yet. The builders may have understood consciousness physics that we're only beginning to glimpse through our most advanced theoretical research. The genetic activation effects are revealing human potential that appears to have been deliberately encoded in our DNA, waiting for specific environmental triggers to unlock capabilities that seem almost superhuman by current standards. Enhanced individuals are developing sensory abilities, cognitive capacities, and even physical capabilities that suggest our species possesses latent potential, far beyond what we've considered normal. Some subjects demonstrate electromagnetic sensitivity that allows them to perceive energy fields invisible to conventional detection equipment. Others exhibit enhanced pattern recognition that enables them to solve complex problems instantaneously. A few have developed what can only be described as direct consciousness interface with electronic systems, controlling computers and communication devices through focused mental intention alone. These aren't random mutations or isolated anomalies. The capabilities follow consistent patterns that suggest systematic activation of genetic sequences that exist in all human DNA but normally remain dormant. The network appears to be implementing a species-wide upgrade that unlocks potential that was always present but never accessed. The timing of these developments corresponds to astronomical cycles and planetary alignments that the ancient builders incorporated into their long-term planning algorithms. We're living through the precise historical window they identified as optimal for consciousness evolution and genetic activation on a global scale, but the acceleration is creating challenges that extend beyond scientific understanding into realms of human adaptation and social integration. How does society accommodate individuals who can communicate telepathically, access information through non-local consciousness networks, and influence physical systems through focused awareness? The enhanced individuals themselves are grappling with capabilities that exceed anything their cultural backgrounds prepared them to handle. They're developing abilities that seem miraculous while trying to maintain normal lives in a world that has no framework for understanding or accepting their expanded potential. Some are choosing to remain hidden, using their capabilities discreetly while appearing to live conventional lives. Others are beginning to connect with fellow enhanced individuals, forming communities that can provide mutual support and understanding for their extraordinary experiences. The consciousness networks they're forming through quantum entanglement connections are becoming increasingly sophisticated, developing communication protocols and cooperative strategies that operate entirely outside conventional social and technological systems. They're creating a parallel civilization that exists within our current world, but operates according to principles we don't recognize or understand. The implications for human governance, economics, and social organization are revolutionary. If consciousness enhancement and genetic activation continue to spread, we could be facing the emergence of a post-human species that possesses capabilities requiring entirely new forms of social organization and resource management. The ancient builders may have anticipated this transition and embedded guidance systems within their network to help enhanced humans navigate the challenges of species-level transformation. The consciousness-responsive technologies might include educational protocols that activate as individuals develop sufficient awareness to access more advanced capabilities. But we're also approaching threshold points where the changes could become irreversible on a planetary scale. The quantum networks are approaching critical mass where they could trigger cascade effects that activate dormant systems worldwide simultaneously, potentially transforming human consciousness and biology across the entire species within a matter of days or weeks. The builders program their systems to recognize specific planetary conditions and human development milestones that indicate readiness for species-wide transformation. Both criteria appear to be converging in our current era, suggesting that we're living through the precise moment they identified for humanity's next evolutionary leap. The electromagnetic signatures detected at sites worldwide indicate that we're approaching what researchers are calling an activation cascade, where the network could achieve full operational status for the first time in thousands of years. The consciousness enhancement and genetic activation capabilities that currently affect only individuals could soon be available to anyone who approaches them with appropriate awareness. But the consciousness-based selection criteria built into the system mean that access to these capabilities will depend on factors that can't be controlled through conventional means. The network itself will determine who gains access based on consciousness qualities that include wisdom, integrity, and genuine commitment to human welfare. We're not just witnessing the reactivation of ancient technologies, we're approaching a consciousness-based evolutionary event that could separate humanity into those who gain access to enhanced capabilities and those who remain within current biological and awareness limitations. The builders may have designed their system to create exactly this kind of consciousness-driven speciation event. The stones are resonating with increasing intensity now, their quantum frequencies harmonizing across continents in preparation for what could be the most significant transformation in human history. The ancient architects programmed their technologies to activate when planetary conditions and human consciousness development reached optimal convergence points. Both criteria are approaching fulfillment simultaneously, suggesting that the builders understood cosmic cycles and consciousness evolution with precision that enabled them to program awakening sequences across thousands of years. They created a system that could remain dormant until the exact moment when humanity would be ready for its next evolutionary phase. The consciousness networks are humming with anticipation, their quantum entanglement connections strengthening as enhanced individuals around the world prepare for developments that could transform the nature of human existence itself. The ancient teachers are broadcasting their final lessons through systems that transcend every limitation we've accepted as permanent features of reality. The awakening isn't just beginning, it's accelerating toward a culmination that could reshape consciousness, biology, and human potential beyond anything we've dared to imagine. The question isn't whether you're ready for this transformation. The question is whether the consciousness-responsive technologies will recognize in you the qualities they were designed to enhance. The impossible stones are singing their completion songs now, frequencies that resonate with the deepest structures of reality itself. The ancient architects are calling through networks that span dimensions we're only beginning to recognize, inviting humanity to step beyond every limitation we've accepted as natural law. The global awakening is approaching critical mass. The consciousness cascade is building toward an event horizon beyond which human existence might be transformed forever. Are you ready to discover what lies beyond the boundaries of everything you've believed possible about human potential? Because the ancient technologies aren't just reactivating, they're preparing to reveal capabilities that could redefine what it means to be human in a universe where consciousness itself might be the ultimate creative force. The threshold is approaching. The only question remaining is whether you'll cross it. The threshold isn't just approaching anymore, it's here. And what I'm about to share with you represents the final piece of evidence that will force you to confront a truth so extraordinary that it challenges the very foundations of everything you believe about human consciousness, ancient civilizations, and the nature of reality itself. In the past 72 hours, monitoring stations around the globe have detected something that has sent shockwaves through the classified research community. The consciousness enhancement networks we've been tracking aren't just reactivating randomly. They're responding to something specific, something that's been building in intensity as more people become aware of what's really hidden within the stones of Machu Picchu. Dr. Elena Vasquez, working under protocols so classified they don't officially exist, has documented what she calls observer effect amplification occurring at megalithic sites worldwide. The more people who learn about these ancient technologies, the stronger their electromagnetic signatures become. It's as if human awareness itself is powering up systems that have been dormant for millennia. Think about what this means. The builders didn't just create consciousness-responsive technologies. They created systems that feed on human attention and curiosity. Every person who questions the official narrative, every mind that opens to possibilities beyond conventional explanations, every individual who dares to consider that our ancestors might have possessed capabilities we've lost, becomes a power source for technologies that transcend our understanding. You're not just learning about these mysteries. By engaging with this information, by allowing these possibilities to resonate in your consciousness, you're participating in the reactivation sequence that the ancient architects programmed into their planetary network. Your awareness is literally contributing to the awakening of technologies that could transform human potential beyond recognition. The consciousness cascade we've been tracking has reached a tipping point. The quantum entanglement networks are achieving coherence levels that researchers describe as approaching critical resonance. The electromagnetic signatures detected at sites from Stonehenge to Angkor Wat are harmonizing in patterns that suggest the global system is preparing for full activation. But here's what makes this development truly extraordinary. The activation isn't happening according to some predetermined timeline. It's responding to the collective consciousness of humanity itself. As more people awaken to these possibilities, as more minds open to the truth about our ancient heritage, the technologies embedded in megalithic structures around the world are drawing power from that expanding awareness. The builders created more than just individual consciousness enhancement systems. They created a planetary awakening mechanism that activates in response to humanity's readiness to transcend its current limitations. The more people who question, who seek, who dare to imagine possibilities beyond the boundaries of conventional thinking, the closer we come to triggering the most profound transformation in human history. The genetic activation effects we've documented aren't isolated phenomena affecting only those who physically visit these sites. Recent research suggests that consciousness enhancement can be transmitted through information itself. By learning about these capabilities, by opening your mind to these possibilities, by allowing yourself to consider that human potential extends far beyond current limitations, you may be triggering dormant genetic sequences that have been waiting for exactly this kind of mental activation. The biological changes aren't limited to direct exposure to electromagnetic fields or quantum entanglement networks. They can be initiated through consciousness expansion that occurs when individuals encounter information that resonates with deeper truths about human capability. Your DNA is responding to your awareness, unlocking potential that was always present but never accessed. Some of you reading this may already be experiencing subtle changes: enhanced pattern recognition, increased intuitive sensitivity, moments of expanded awareness that seem to transcend normal consciousness limitations. These aren't coincidences or psychological placebo effects. They're the beginning stages of genetic activation triggered by information exposure and consciousness expansion. The ancient architects understood something about human potential that we're only beginning to rediscover. They knew that consciousness itself is the key to unlocking capabilities that seem impossible by current standards. They embedded activation sequences and information patterns that could trigger evolutionary advancement in individuals ready to receive them. But the transformation isn't automatic or universal. The consciousness-based selection criteria built into these systems mean that only those who approach these possibilities with genuine openness, authentic curiosity, and ethical intentions will experience the full effects. The technologies themselves evaluate the consciousness quality of individuals and grant access accordingly. This explains why some people encountering this information experience profound shifts in awareness and capability, while others dismiss it as fantasy or wishful thinking. The systems are designed to activate only in consciousness that meets specific criteria related to wisdom, integrity, and commitment to human welfare rather than personal power or material gain. The builders created safeguards that prevent these capabilities from being misused by individuals who would exploit them for selfish purposes. The consciousness enhancement and genetic activation effects respond only to awareness that demonstrates readiness for expanded responsibility and ethical application of enhanced abilities. As the global awakening continues to accelerate, we're approaching a point where the consciousness cascade could trigger simultaneous activation events worldwide. The quantum networks are approaching coherence levels that could enable instantaneous consciousness enhancement and genetic activation for millions of individuals simultaneously. But this planetary transformation event will still operate according to the consciousness-based selection criteria embedded in the ancient systems. Not everyone will experience the effects equally. The technologies will continue to evaluate consciousness quality and grant access based on readiness for expanded capabilities and ethical responsibility. The implications are staggering. We could be approaching a speciation event where humanity divides into those who gain access to enhanced consciousness and genetic capabilities, and those who remain within current biological and awareness limitations. The builders may have designed their system to create exactly this kind of consciousness-driven evolutionary divergence. The enhanced individuals emerging from this process won't be separate from or superior to the rest of humanity. They'll be pioneers exploring territories of human potential that have always existed but were never accessed. Their role will be to demonstrate possibilities and help others develop the consciousness qualities necessary to access these capabilities themselves. The ancient technologies aren't creating inequality or division. They're revealing potential that exists within all human consciousness but can only be activated when specific awareness criteria are met. The selection process isn't based on external factors like education, wealth, or social status. It's based entirely on consciousness qualities that anyone can develop through sincere commitment to growth and service. The electromagnetic signatures we're detecting suggest that the activation window is limited. The planetary alignments and consciousness convergence factors that enable these effects operate according to cosmic cycles that occur rarely. We may be living through the only opportunity in thousands of years for these technologies to achieve full operational status. This means that the choices you make about how to respond to this information could determine whether you participate in humanity's next evolutionary phase or remain within current limitation patterns. The consciousness expansion triggered by engaging with these possibilities may be the key to accessing capabilities that could transform your entire experience of existence. But the transformation requires more than intellectual understanding or casual interest. The consciousness-responsive nature of these systems means they activate only when approached with deep sincerity, genuine commitment to truth, and authentic desire to contribute to human welfare rather than personal advancement. The ancient architects embedded wisdom criteria into their technologies because they understood that expanded capabilities require expanded responsibility. They created systems that would enhance only those individuals who demonstrated readiness to use advanced abilities for the benefit of consciousness evolution rather than personal gratification. As the quantum networks approach critical resonance, as the consciousness cascade builds toward planetary transformation, as the genetic activation sequences prepare to unlock human potential on a global scale, the question isn't whether these extraordinary capabilities exist. The evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. The question is whether you possess the consciousness qualities that will enable you to participate in the most profound evolutionary advancement in human history. The ancient technologies are evaluating your awareness right now, measuring your openness to truth, your commitment to growth, your dedication to serving the highest good of human consciousness development. The stones of Machu Picchu are still singing their awakening songs, but now they're harmonizing with sites across the globe in a symphony of transformation that could herald the dawn of a new phase of human existence. The ancient architects are broadcasting their final invitation through systems that transcend every limitation we've accepted as permanent features of reality. The consciousness networks are humming with possibility, their quantum frequencies resonating with genetic codes and awareness patterns that exist within every human being, but activate only when specific conditions are met. The technologies aren't selecting people based on external qualifications. They're responding to consciousness qualities that determine readiness for expanded capability and responsibility. The global awakening is building toward a crescendo that could transform human potential beyond anything we've imagined. But participation in this transformation isn't guaranteed or automatic. It requires consciousness development that meets criteria embedded in systems designed by builders who understood the relationship between awareness and capability better than we're only beginning to comprehend. The threshold isn't just approaching anymore, it's here, waiting for those who are ready to step beyond every limitation they've accepted as natural law. The ancient technologies are operational, their consciousness-responsive selection criteria active, their transformational capabilities available to those who demonstrate the awareness qualities necessary to access them responsibly. The impossible stones are resonating with the deepest frequencies of possibility itself, calling to consciousness that's ready to transcend the boundaries of everything we've believed about human potential. The ancient teachers are offering their final lessons through networks that operate beyond the constraints of space and time, but their invitation comes with ultimate responsibility. Because once you understand what human consciousness can really achieve, once you experience capabilities that transcend current limitations, once you participate in technologies that reveal the true nature of awareness itself, you can never again accept the artificial boundaries that others try to impose on your potential. The awakening is here. The consciousness cascade is building toward critical mass. The genetic activation sequences are preparing to unlock capabilities that could revolutionize human existence. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to discover what lies beyond everything you've believed possible, about who you are and what you can become in a universe where consciousness itself might be the ultimate creative technology. The ancient architects are still calling, the quantum networks are still broadcasting, the consciousness enhancement fields are still waiting. Your response to this moment, your openness to these possibilities, your commitment to truth and growth and service will determine whether you participate in humanity's next evolutionary leap or remain within the limitations that others accept as permanent. The choice is yours. The technology is ready. The transformation is beginning. Are you?